We've made it to hump day, folks, right here. I can't believe we're already on October the 4th. That's what the watch says. That can't be right. It feels like just the other day we were talking about the last week of September, and now we are in the middle of the first week of October already. Temperature 68 degrees today, partly cloudy. It's the sun peeking over the hollowed out cloud that serves no other purpose. Right next to it, Thursday, it says 67, mostly sunny. A larger ball of fire creeping out over a smaller and white-filled cloud. It makes no sense. I don't know, Billy, at this point, maybe we need to get Lisa Hidalgo back on to explain the pictograms, because I don't even know if they know who's generating them. You think it's the intern. It could be a janitor. We don't know. Just sitting around on an unmonitored computer putting these things together. But they claim that by Friday it's going to be 63 degrees, and then we shoot back up to 75 and 80 on Saturday and Sunday, which is great because that's a baseball and sports weekend. I am broadcasting to you live. Not yet from Denver. No, that will be Friday.
Yeah, where are you? We can play like Where in the World is George Brauchler, like Carmen Sandiego. Where in the world?
I don't know if I'm the Where's Waldo, if I'm Dora the Explorer. There's some
like the Carmen Sandiego. Yeah, that gives you more mystery that way.
Oh, I could be Carmen.
Plus much better
little
hat.
Carmen.
Much better hat.
Swiper don't swipe.
Yeah,
like
that's true. That's
part of the mantra.
Way I
of the
live. Yeah,
Swiper don't swipe. There's a place in North Carolina called Asheville. It is right outside the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. It has a lot going on around it, including a giant casino called Harrah's something Casino. It's got the word Cherokee in it.
Wow.
I don't know, because my flight landed so late last night that I was driving in the dark, and it was one of those windy roads where it felt like the car edition of Blair Witch.
Oh, awesome.
Like the lights are coming around the corner, and there's some of these. I'm sure some of the places I drove by still had stills in them, where they were making moonshine.
Oh, excellent.
And then there were other parts where I thought, if I go off the road, I'm doing nocturnal deliverance, right?
Yeah,
like somebody's coming up. I hear a banjo in the background, and then pretty soon somebody's dead baiting me. If
either that, or you're gonna meet your world's biggest fan who listens to you on the internet and finds your car at the side of the road, and she brings you back to her house and heals you. Yes, that's gonna happen.
She helps my ankle issues.
Yes, exactly.
Folks, if you don't know what those references are to, I wonder how long you've been paroled, because those are
very old references. It's shown that we are hip, we are up with the kids, and we know what's happening.
A reference to Kathy Bates in Misery, Ned Beatty in Deliverance, which I think may be 50 years old now.
Exactly.
Deliverance, maybe.
Yeah. We are nothing if not cool.
Yeah. But there's no other modern movie to describe that. What are you going to say? It's just like Saw 4.
Yeah,
there just isn't anything out there.
Yeah, it's like
really,
The Purge. Yeah, no, it doesn't.
Yeah, it was like that one scene in The Purge.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that scene in The Purge. But Deliverance, man, that haunts you.
Yes, that does. Yeah.
You can't hear someone say, "You sure have a pretty mouth," and not instantly.
Not instantly go right there. Yeah.
Not just right there, but curl up into the fetal position and wonder. somebody had to write this down on paper, and then they made a movie out of it with these 4 great stars: Ronnie Cox, Ned Beatty, John Voight, and Burt Reynolds.
Yeah.
I mean,
but hey guys, how would you like to do this? You're like, wait a minute. Yeah.
Yeah, like when you're doing the first live read of the script around the table, at what point does Ned Beatty go, hey, whoa, why can't it be John Voight?
Yeah, why can't he? Yeah, why? How come it has to be me?
What?
Yeah.
Well, I could be the one that's strapped up to the tree. I don't have to be the one crawling around.
Yeah, I don't have to. It's almost like the first table read of Pulp Fiction, I imagine, went the same way. They were like, I'm going to do what?
I wonder if that happened where they're like, listen, if Quentin Tarantino's like, listen, Ving, you're going to be a huge star after this, but the path to get there, it's awkward.
I like how you said but. That was nice. A little double entendre thrown in there. That was good.
That also don't know Pulp Fiction, which is its own crime.
It is.
Right, if you don't know that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I got here. I'll get the morning with you, of course. I got a little bit of business to take care of after. I'm going to try to slip into the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. I just never have a reason to be out here other than this. And then tomorrow I do a big, long presentation to the good law enforcement folks from, I think, North Carolina, Georgia, and I'm missing one of the states that touch it. It could be South Carolina, but that's tomorrow. A good chunk of the day we'll be doing that. And then I hop on a little bit of a plane and I go, jet airliner all the way back to Denver.
Now I heard
I will see.
Now I know you're working on the big presentation for tomorrow. Is this the one we've been talking about off the air, where it's basically your interpretive dance about what happens with a STEM school shooting? That it's a new performance that you're unveiling, and we're not there yet because I know you've been stretching and you've been working.
Art meets crime.
No, it isn't.
No,
oh darn! I was hoping this was going to be the big national premiere of it.
No, this is definitely a mass shooting presentation. Yeah. But it is not that one. They didn't seem that art involved. In fact, I think we'd have had a good time at the Guggenheim going through the young early Korean art of the 60s and 70s, where again, and I cling to this, there's a t-shirt that should be made of this. If I can make it, it's not art.
That is a good point.
That is the standard that by which I will judge all art in the future. Could I do it? Then it's not art.
It's not art, no. If my low skill level can reach that, then no.
Someone texted in, Asheville is the Boulder of North Carolina.
Interesting.
Wow. It's interesting, too, because we have a casino here. I just don't know if I associate a casino with Boulder.
Yeah, I don't know
the
either.
Gamble in Boulder is with your freedom.
Now, is it a Native American-owned casino? Because it kind of feels like, we're being nice and we're trying to give them a chance to win some of the money back.
It's got the word Cherokee in it, so that could happen. It's giant. I mean, it's a giant complex here. Like I parked. They're like, oh, free valet parking. So I parked the rental car there. I go in, wait, start to check in, and the woman goes, oh, sir, you're in the Cherokee Tower. And I'm like, okay, well, where's that?
Yeah.
She's like, you're going to have to get your car and go. I'm like, wait a minute, I have to drive to it. She's like, it's about a 15-20 minute walk. I'm like, nope, I got to get the car.
So wait, when you have a special reservation and you're in not just the Cherokee Hotel, but the Cherokee Tower, apparently they don't have people that will, come out holding a large throne, 4 of them, one on each pole, and then they carry you along with people that follow you behind. And
Billy, they do that.
Yeah.
But you have to be a diamond member.
Oh,
because
you're still quartz, aren't you? I think you're the quartz
dude
member.
that grabbed up the car says, are you a diamond or 7 something member? I don't know what the other word is after 7. And I go, I don't think so, because none of that rings a bell, but maybe I'll get lucky here, And I said, what's the difference? And he goes, oh, they a lot more freebies with the diamond thing. And then with the 7, whatever it is, 7 gold concubines. I don't know what they are, but 7 something. He goes, oh, there's just a lot more different levels of stuff. I said, and I asked Billy, will they carry me to my room?
Yes, that's
and
important.
He laughs and he goes, I think they might.
With the 7 member, I think you're allowed to be mayor for one day a month, I think.
Oh, that actually couldn't go any worse than our current governmental structure.
Yeah, couldn't be any worse. How bad would that be?
Maybe that's the new move, is that every member of Congress will get to be speaker for a day and just see what damage they can rot.
That is wonderful.
There's 435 members in a 2-year term. They're not even in session 435 days. That's not hyperbole. That's legit.
And yet we pay them a lot of money for it.
We pay them for every day.
Very
We
weird.
pay them for every day, but they could do speaker for a day. Sounds like it could be a great session, and we
Oh,
we
good
don't
one.
do it all the time. Like
No.
you just do it every 4 or 5 terms.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
and it's just interesting to see what happens. So, for instance, yesterday, the new replacement speaker, also from North Carolina, what's his name? That escapes me right now. His first act was to, I guess, evict Nancy Pelosi from her offices.
Yeah. Well, I guess now it's not her technical office space, but there is
No,
a
that's
side office that she's been using, and she took it over when she was speaker, and she just kind of absorbed it and just said, "Well, unless anybody tells me to leave, I'm not leaving." Which again, I can appreciate. However, I also can appreciate the fact that the first thing is get out. I like
Well,
them both on
it's
both
also
sides. I like it.
it's historic in that
Yeah.
in the past speakers have been allowed to hang on to a couple of those offices. And
Yeah.
I need to tell folks, if you've never been to the Capitol, that is a huge perk. And it's a huge perk because all of the other House office buildings, Longworth and the others, and the Senate as well, are nowhere easy to get to the floor of the House from. Like you have to take a tunnel or
Yeah.
a train, and there's elevators and all this other stuff. The speaker's office is right down the hall from the floor. So if you get to keep an office or a suite there, you have saved yourself hours of living, maybe days over the course of a legislative session. It's a big, big deal. It's like if they allowed us to use the Salem executive bathrooms that Billy and Kelly keep to themselves, it would shave off. Like right now, that folks, when we take a break, at about 56:50, Billy's at a dead sprint to get to the closest bathroom to be able to just open the door, run in, drop some things out of him, and then come back and make it on time for the air.
Yeah.
This would be like having a bathroom in the studio with Billy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Would there be a bathroom attendant? Because that gets a little awkward. Because sometimes you get some stage fright.
I'm so glad you asked that. There are bathroom attendants for the
Okay.
bathrooms, not for you or me, but
okay.
at the Capitol. And I think I told this story once. Ken Buck took me and a couple other people on a tour. It was after hours, and we were down on the floor for a little bit. I didn't feel comfortable going all the way in. Like, my shoes aren't supposed to be on this carpet, but I did use the members only bathroom. I wasn't wearing a members only jacket,
Nice.
but I did go use the members only bathroom.
I love that reference.
And there were some guys in there doing their attending. And I think they just presume that when they see a dude who looks like me walking around at that hour in that place, and they're like, "Hey, Congressman, how's it going?" And I look around, I'm it.
Yeah,
and I'm just like,
all right.
It's going real well.
Yeah, going real well. Yeah, can you help me get into my office over here?
So
can you help me carry a few of these things out to my car?
I got on the urinals near the floor of the House from a discussion of Cherokee Tower on the Cherokee Harris property.
It's like when the texters say, that this part of the morning is special. Yes, it is. It is. It is special in so many different ways.
It is like a box of chocolates.
It is,
but it's not just chocolates.
No,
it might look like chocolate, but it's something else.
Yeah, and every once in a while, you get one of those Cheerios. It's been under the couch for a while. It's a little furry,
still a little stale but chewy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Alexa texted in, there are fire alarms in those buildings as well.
I think recently one of our House members found out. And again,
I love the idea that this guy has to defend his conduct on "I am that stupid."
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
It wasn't intentional.
Yeah, exactly. Not intentional. The big red and white thing that said fire alarm. I thought it said open.
Yeah,
really?
Right. But I love that he doesn't have any other options. This dude, I think, was a former principal or something.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what the thing means. They're accusing him of trying to delay the vote and all this stuff. And his response has to be, "I'm that bad. I am so sorry. I did not know what I was doing."
Yeah. It's like, nope, not nefarious, just dumb. You're like,
no, yeah,
I'm
it
not
can't
sure
be
that
someone
works.
else told me to do it, or at the time it said open. He can't defend on any of those. It's either yes, I tried to delay the vote, or I am just a chucklehead. I am a moron.
And I really hope that his opponent next time uses that. I mean, over and over and over again, the fact that he has admitted that he does not know what a fire alarm looks like, nor how they work. And yet he's responsible for making laws. That should be an issue. Just in general, that should be an issue.
I feel like this is probably a dude from a pretty heavily Democrat district, but
Oh, yeah.
maybe, just maybe, they run a couple commercials where it's like, this November 4th, we
Yes.
can pull the fire alarm on Congressman Dumbass.
Yes. Or at least do, like a quick check, fire alarm, this, compare and contrast. No, just a refresher course for so and so, the representative, use his name. So here's a this is a fire alarm. Don't pull this. This is a sandwich. This goes in your mouth. This is a fire alarm. Don't pull this. This is the toilet. This is where you go to the bathroom. I mean, just, something like that.
Maybe you have to do that, like sort of a PSA for the congressman
Yes,
throughout the election.
exactly.
Like, this is a sink. This is a toilet.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Don't
This
confuse
is how the
them.
door opens. Yeah, exactly. That'd be fun. I'd love to do that.
This is toilet paper. This is your hand.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
Remember which one to use. Or like the old Animaniacs. Good idea, bad idea. Good idea, being on the floor to vote. Bad idea, pulling the fire alarm to delay the vote. You can do a series of things. There's so many things you could do with this.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Patrick McHenry. Thank you. Patrick McHenry is I don't know what he was. I don't know if he was the House Speaker in waiting, the Vice Speaker of the House. I don't know what it was, but he was baked into whatever the paperwork or agreement was at the time that Andrew McCarthy was made the Speaker. This guy was the instant understudy. Like, if things went badly, he became the guy. And so now I guess he's in charge for as long as it takes them to find a new speaker. And my understanding is it's going to be at least a week. Like, they have nothing going on.
It's going to be more than that. I think you think they're going to be able to get, you saw how well it went with the debt ceiling negotiations and the budget extension and continuing resolutions. A week? No way. I will be surprised if they can do anything inside of 10 business days or, 2 weeks, as the regular people call it. So I would be super surprised if 2 weeks from now they have anything settled.
Yeah, obviously, folks remember that we were like seconds away. We MacGyvered our way out of the government shutdown there. It's Saturday night, as he's got the Clippers. Don't cut the blue one.
Yeah.
And we didn't. But now we only have to like mid-November to figure this out. And we're going to gobble up a couple weeks trying to figure out who the person is that's going to lead that end of the movie glory charge up the hill into the withering gunfire.
And then they have to set up what the strategy is, and then they're going to have to find the deal. Right. Good luck with that one. Again, this for me is just Republicans sitting around in a circle and forming a circular firing squad.
It'll be interesting because we're going to have this conversation obviously this morning. This is historic news. I mean, this is epic kind of stuff, and it definitely has an impact not only on the government of today, but the government we may choose to have in 2024 here. Joan texts in pro tem. Yep, Speaker pro tem. That does sound right. Thank you for that. Somebody texted in, Billy, a picture of creepy banjo boy from Deliverance over a picture of our current president, and I'm telling you, the eyes look eerily similar. It's really inappropriate, but eerily similar.
I like that. Oh, and did you see yesterday? Was it yesterday or day before? White House sent out a black and white image of Joe Biden at a podium, and he had his aviators on, and it was supposed to make him look like the cool president.
Oh, yeah. And
oddly enough, a lot of social media pushback going, not so much. Yeah, no, it was, I really enjoyed a lot of the comments in the thread were absolutely fantastic. They're like, this is not cool. This is not making fun of when grandpa tries to look cool when grandpa does this. And it was really nice. It was very, I love to see that. Yeah.
A lot of comms careers have ended with those kinds of ideas.
Yes, exactly.
Like if you look at, do you remember John Kerry windsurfing?
Yeah. Oh,
you know what I mean? When they were, and Michael Dukakis in the tank.
Yes, there's so many little things. Yeah.
Somebody said, "Hey, listen, we got a great photo op, sir, Governor. We have a great photo op. We're going to put you in a tank. We're going to put you on the helmet."
Yeah.
They never thought ever to say, "Don't smile like an idiot."
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Not
like,
at all. Don't look like you're having fun
on a ride.
Yeah, don't look like you're a 6-year-old the first time on a ride. Yeah, and again, you also no one saw Governor DeSantis and said, in the flood thing, maybe you don't wear the big white go-go boots. Maybe not, sir. Maybe, sir, we make a different choice. I just, in theory,
there's just, I'm telling you, I think the comms world is in Billy. This is your next career. I mean, you're in comms already, but if you look at this, look at KJP. I mean, KJP may be the worst press secretary person
Oh,
in my lifetime. And
worst I
that's
could
saying a
think of.
lot
Yeah,
because
worst I
we
could
had
think
all
of.
the ones that Trump had.
Yes.
You know, I mean, but she is truly, truly awful.
Yeah.
And just so that people don't think this is a partisan issue, I think Jen Psaki, who I disagree with on almost everything, was great at what she did.
Oh,
I
she
mean,
was good. Yeah.
she controlled that room. She made eye contact with people that
Yep.
she spoke to, you know, the little things. And I thought she was pretty dominant. But KJP, oh my gosh.
Yeah, Psaki had the ability to make you feel like she knew the answer before you finished the question. That she gave the impression, whether or not she gave the impression behind that podium that she was on top of it. And she understood what was going on. And when you ask a question, she's going to be able to answer it. KJP seems like she's surprised every time she gets a question. It's almost as if it's take your daughter to work day. And it's like, and now my daughter is going to take the questions from the reporters. And she's like, what, mama? And it just has no idea what is happening. And it is shocking. And this is, again, coming off the heels of a series of really awful Trump Spocks. So that's just not good.
Yeah.
But,
So I'm just saying, Billy, this is perhaps your next future.
Well,
you could be the voice, the guy
Yeah.
that says not only the emperor has no clothes, but please don't put him in that tank. Or nobody's voting for John Kerry because he windsurfs.
See,
windsurfing is an elitist sport.
It is.
That's how everyone thinks it, right?
And it's not going to make you look cool. It's not going to connect you with the kids, you idiots. And especially old man in a wetsuit.
Old man in a wetsuit doesn't work.
No, not in the least.
He could have gone out and shot things out of the sky or killed Bambi or something and got more mileage. He could have gone bowling. You know what I mean? Throw on a ridiculous bowling thing, get your drink on with your staff. And even then people would be like, okay. I mean, but windsurfing?
Yeah. He could have come out like the dude in a robe at a bowling alley holding a white Russian. And that would have been more effective than him going windsurfing. It's just,
and he would have announced that his drink was a Putin.
Exactly.
Because it's a white Russian.
Yes, that's exactly it.
He could have also played polo, which is equally awful to the windsurfing.
Yeah.
I mean, but what, Billy, I guess this is my way of saying I encourage you to use monster.com.
Oh, thank you.
During the breaks when you're not running down the hall to hit the head.
We've had that conversation that, if given the chance, making me the press secretary for some sort of elected official would be a heck of a lot of fun. We've had that conversation off the air that, the way that I would deal with the reporters and the way that I would deal with the press, because, I've been on the other side. So I understand these mouth breathers. So it would be a lot of fun. It would be, it could be must-see TV. It would be great. You put me on that podium inside the White House, I don't care who. It doesn't matter with the party. You want to see something fun? I'll make that fun. Yeah. I'll make that so much fun.
In the well-received, critically acclaimed TV show, The West Wing.
Oh, yes.
Your character was played by Rob Lowe.
Ooh, I feel so much sexier.
Yeah.
I also feel like I've really let myself go at this point. So I feel a little self-conscious, but I like that idea.
Your spelling, though, would be much more like XXX Rob Lowe, like RAWBLOW.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
Exactly. That's exactly it. And I would have to come in every day in a leather jacket.
Somebody texted in, imagine Trump in a wetsuit. Why did you do that? Why did you do that?
It'd be like one of those little water weenie things you had as a kid where you like hold it and it keeps running through your hand as it rolls. And it's
I saw this thing online that was somebody, Jimmy Kimmel maybe, interviewed Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh, okay.
And say, hey, what do you think? He goes, you're a world-renowned physique guy, 7-time Mr. Olympia, you know stuff. What did you think about the revelation at the time of his processing down there in Georgia that the president was 6'3", 215?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
He didn't get gratuitous. It took a lot of prying by Jimmy.
Yeah.
But ultimately, Arnold took a stab and said, probably closer to 315. I thought,
I'm betting he's north of 270. Yeah, that's my guess.
It's one of those photos, like I'm sure your photos like mine. But when you show up to get your picture taken at the DMV, I look like I've just fled law enforcement. Like this is the picture that they'll match up to me when they catch me. I see other women coming in to do they've done the hair thing.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They're taking some time to get.
Yeah.
I just want to see Donald Trump's. I want to see the driver's license because the numbers don't mean anything to me. Like I'll just say stuff. One time I said I was 6'4". The other time, no, I never did that. I just
I saw yesterday where Trump said that in the fraud trial in New York that he is going to testify yet again. And we'll see if it
good for him,
happens.
man. I think that's so smart.
Let's see what happens, because he said a number of times he's going to testify in these trials and has never shown up on the stand. But I did see on social media, as soon as that scrolled by, one of the first comments was, if he takes the stand, you have to ask him how much he weighs if he's under oath. I'm like, that's funny. I appreciate that one.
I think he needs to testify, and yet as his attorney, I would beg him not to testify, in part because I don't think this is necessarily the end of whatever criminal exposure may exist for the things he says on the stand. Like, I don't know who Letitia James has in her stable in terms of prosecutors, but do not underestimate the ability of these guys to use the topic of the day to leverage a conversation and questions about things you didn't want to get up there and talk about. That will happen.
Yeah, that will absolutely happen. And that's why if I was his attorney, if I had to, I would handcuff him to the table and not let him get on the stand. Whatever I had to do. If I had to slash the tires in his car so that he could not show up that day at court, whatever it is, don't care. If I had to stage a kidnapping, I would do it. I would do anything I could if I was his attorney to not let him on the stand, because I did see the majority of the deposition in the E.G. and Carroll case.
What do you think? How do you do?
No, in the E.G. and Carroll case, that's a nightmare. That you cannot let that guy on the stand, open mic, talking to any sort of lawyer. No, you cannot do that. That is not going to go well. It is going to create so many messes, because I firmly believe that Donald Trump, let's just say he has a very loose and not binding relationship with facts and the truth. And in my opinion, he tries to win the moment. Whatever he thinks he needs to say, do, or describe in that instant in order to win the conversation, that's what he's going to do. If he has to go 180 degrees and directly contradict himself 3 minutes later, so be it, because then he's going to win that moment of the conversation 3 minutes later. I don't think there's any long-term planning.
If he's testifying, I'm not sure it's about winning. Like right now, as we know, his attorneys, whatever decision-making process they went through, decided that perhaps not asking for a jury was the smart move here. He would do better. I'm not saying he's going to win. He would do better in front of a jury than a judge, and this judge in particular. This judge has already shown that he doesn't have a lot of patience. So if Trump takes the stand, I don't think it's about this case, and I don't think it's about the judge. I think he thinks, and he's probably right, he's speaking to America, and he's speaking to the voters, and it's an opportunity to rebut this, independent of what decisions the judge makes. And I think he wants to create an environment where he has the ability to talk about how corrupt the judge is and finding against him and all these other things. I think the mistake he's making is that he thinks that, well, this isn't a criminal case. You know what I mean? Like I can't get hemmed up on this. These charges are civil because they couldn't come up with either the evidence to prove the criminal thing, or they lack the statute of limitations or whatever. That's my sense of what he thinks. I just think it's a mistake. There's really a guy in his position with 4 pending indictments. It's never a good risk to get on the stand unless you just simply don't care. If you don't care, then get up there.
I'd also think that he believes that if he just talks to you, he can persuade you of whatever reality it is in his mind at that moment. That was some of the questions about the Bernstein book. People were asking, why did he be so open, or why was he so open with Bernstein, and why was he coming back to him and talking to him over and over and over again? And the people that I read inside the White House said he was so mad with the first book that he felt that if he talked to Bernstein, he could persuade him, to see his side, and he could convince him to tell his story. And the issue was not that the story was bad for him the first time, is that Trump didn't spend enough time talking to the author and telling his story, that he firmly believes that, just like when he stands up at those political rallies, that when he's talking, eventually everybody is going to start cheering. And I think that's what he believes, that if he gets up on that stand, eventually the entire courtroom is going to start cheering for him, that he believes he is that persuasive of a speaker. And I think that could actually be his downfall. But so far, every time that he said, I'm going to get up on the stand and testify, he has not. So let's see if this is the one time that he is going to hold that statement to reality, that he's actually going to follow up on doing what he said he's going to do.
One of our texters, Melania, probably has a good idea how much he weighs. Ask her. No, I don't think anyone can find her. I don't think anyone's
Yeah.
seen her.
No, not recently. No.
It says, it's another texter. It's sad the American population has the attention span of a housefly. And if you're a new listener, by the way, you can text us off the app. We respond to these. Sometimes during the break when Billy doesn't have to take care of that incontinence, he'll come right in here and he'll start cranking on the text as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Sometimes we have conversations off the air. Had one yesterday. It was nice. It was good.
Yeah. I wish I had not burned so much time. Well, once again, this is just what we do. Very quick update. Did spend a little bit of time yesterday in transit listening to the McLean trial. And I'll be honest, I got confused. I thought that the prosecution must have rested and we were in the defense case because the guys that are the civil attorneys out of Chicago and LA, the dude from Chicago was up asking questions, as did the local guy who's the 7-year white collar prosecutor. And the way they were asking questions were called leading questions, questions that suggest the answer in the question. And you get to ask those on cross-examination. And there were so many of them back to back to back to back. I'm like, oh my God, somehow they're in cross-examination. This is crazy. So I text somebody that I know who's following the case. I'm like, whoa, when did they arrest? They're like, no. They're still in their case in chief.
Really?
And it occurs to me as I continue to listen, these guys don't know how to do redirect. So what that means is
what does it mean?
When somebody calls a witness, if I call Billy as a witness, I get to ask him questions that are not leading, like open-ended questions. Like if I say, please state your name, spell your last name for the record, that doesn't suggest the answer, right? If I say, tell people you're Billy Thorpe, right? You're Billy Thorpe, right? And you spell Thorpe, I'm suggesting the answer. Asking someone, do you know what time it is? That's not leading. You know what time it is, don't you? That is leading. You don't get to ask very many leading questions on anything other than cross, just because of the way the system is set up. Cross is the other side controlling your witness, trying to get the information out. So what I've noticed is these dudes from the AG's office, and I'm going to use air quotes for AG's office because 2 of them really have probably never set foot in the building because they're from somewhere else. But these guys think that redirect. So the examination of a witness goes direct. The person that called them, the person that didn't call them gets to oppose them on cross-examination. And then the people that called them get to try to clean up whatever mess got made through redirect. But you still get stuck with the open-ended questions. These guys don't know that, or they don't know how to do it, because they had to be reminded through objections multiple times. But they think that that redirect is just for them to have the witness restate all of the good testimony they gave in the direct examination, which it is not.
No,
which it is not. Again, I want to caveat all this by saying these guys can still win. There's real evidence in this case, folks. I'm not telling you that this is some kind of a clown show and there's no way a jury. I'm not telling you that. These guys, they're just not great at what they do. They're at a different level. Maybe this is what happens in the civil world, which bums me out because I imagine these guys are getting paid on the real world $1,000 an hour, $750 an hour. I mean, easy. And but when they come into the trenches here and the criminal stuff, they just, I don't know. They seem like they are inexperienced. It just strikes me that way.
The way that you describe it reminds me of the the Sean Connery quote in The Untouchables, that it seems like they have brought a knife to a gunfight. It seems like they are wholly unprepared to actually try this case as how it needs to be tried in the criminal sphere. If we were looking at civil liability, it sounds like they would be on their P's and Q's. But when we're in the criminal trial reality, it sounds like they don't really understand the full breadth of what's going on.
I'm not sure it's as bad, although I love the fact that you went Sean Connery. How many movie references have we made
How
in
many
this
can we do?
freaking segment? I think they're prepared, and the information they get out of direct examination is tactically proficient. They need to do it. There's just I don't know. It's more than style because it's the leading question thing. It just feels like this is an unfamiliar setting for them. It just feels like this is something where they put a ton of preparation into it, but they don't have the repetitions to make it smooth. They don't have the repetitions to do it like a 2nd or 3rd year state prosecutor would. And yep, that's a little demeaning, but that is legit, man. These guys just don't seem to have the reps. And I go back to the one dude whose website there, in addition to him representing Home Depot, Shell Oil, and 20th Century Fox, touts the fact that he has 25 jury trials. And I thought,
25.
my God, there are interns in Colorado that are coming up on 25 jury trials. Like, come on, man. Listen,
I do have to
once
tell you
again,
that the way you're describing that there brought me back to my junior year in high school and going to junior prom. I'm just saying about the way you're describing it. And I'll let everybody else complete the joke.
Thank you for that.
All right. I'm going to take my headphones
Listen,
off.
we got to cut away for a break because we are danger close to blow. Alexa at some points is going to say, you did it. You reset the bar. Stick around. We're going to do the Thorpe Report. That's all the good, legitimate news that just really darken your day. And then we're going to go to the You Choose the News and pick you right back up. It's George Brauchler on The George Show. You're listening to 710 KNUS.
Well, this is awkward. I have no idea where George went. He, of course, is on the road in Nashville right now. So, tell you what, I'm just taking over. We are going to get to the Thorpe Report and tell you all the, well, okay, not so good news here in our Denver metro area. Fair, seasonally and relatively uneventful weather continues today and tomorrow. Our next system is pushing through our region by Friday, bringing another shot of cool air under partly cloudy skies. Just in time for our weekend, though, we are going to be sticking with a warmer forecast and dry conditions that is going to hold into next week. Today, mostly sunny, seasonal, high around 70. 68 tomorrow, 60 degrees on Friday. Overnight lows could drop down to 36. So take that into consideration based on sprinkler systems and other plumbing issues. Saturday, sunny skies, highs of 71, 79 on Sunday, and 78 as you roll back into work on Monday. In just a few hours, Kaiser Permanente's unionized workers are expected to walk off the job in Colorado and elsewhere around the country. The local healthcare SEIU Local 105 contract specialist for Kaiser Permanente said going on strike is a drastic step for these union workers, one they had hoped to avoid. In Colorado, it could mean that 3,000 healthcare workers walk off the job. Nationwide, around 75,000 are expected to leave their jobs today and go on strike. Aurora police are investigating a shooting at the Southlands Mall, left a teenager dead. They said the 15-year-old boy is named Raphael Velen. He was shot in the parking lot of the shopping center at 6100 Main Street Saturday night around 8:30, taken to the hospital where he later passed away. Police are looking for 4 to 5 suspects who drove away from the scene in a black 4-door sedan. Denver police have identified a suspect in the murder case of James Montoya, man who disappeared after leaving a Lakewood bar in April, whose remains were found nearly 4 hours away in July. Denver Police Department said they are searching for Jesus Angel Arvizo, 33, wanted on a charge of first-degree murder in connection to the death. He lives in Alamosa, but may be in the south central Colorado area. I'm sorry, no, he lives in Denver, maybe in Alamosa, or in the south central area of Colorado. On the heels of the U.S. Supreme Court victory this summer for a graphic artist who didn't want to design wedding websites for a same-sex couple, Colorado's highest court said yesterday it's going to hear the case of Jack Phillips. Yes, Jack Phillips is going through yet another lawsuit, this time over someone that wanted to make a cake celebrating a birthday and a gender transition. Yes, it's the same transgendered lawyer that did it before. Oddly enough, the lawyer, whose name I'm not going to mention, said she brought the lawsuit to, quote, challenge the veracity of Phillips' statements that he would serve LGBTQ plus customers. Her attorney said her cake order was not a setup intended to file a lawsuit. However, she did say that she brought the lawsuit to challenge the veracity. So if she wasn't going to file a lawsuit at the end of it, what was the point? Oh, well, I'm being silly. 15-year-old boy was sentenced yesterday after pleading guilty to murder and other charges in connection with the fire that killed a mother and a daughter at the Lakewood apartment building back in 2022. 2 teen boys were charged as juveniles in connection with the fire. Elsewhere, construction crews are still hard at work on Rose on Colfax. It's an 82-unit affordable housing complex going to serve families in Denver's East Colfax neighborhood. They're hoping to have it ready in the next month or so. Units are going to be reserved for residents who make 30 to 80% of the area median income. That would mean $78,000 a year. Just take that in your pipe and smoke it. If you're making $78,000 a year or less, that means you're only making 30 to 80% of the area median income. And after more than a decade after historic military munitions were found on Green Mountain, they're going to do a comprehensive sweep next year just to make sure that we don't all blow ourselves up incidentally. All righty. Looks like George is back. Hey, sir. How are you?
Billy, I had not had the camera on, but I've been sitting here through the Thorpe Report, and I think my sound was off because I was chiming in, and apparently I was the only one enjoying it.
Well, the issue was that we came back from the music, and the music played, and you know talkie. So I didn't know where you were.
Yeah,
so,
I think our understanding of what 3.5 minutes was different. And
well, I did actually shorten it by about 30 seconds, but even then,
I think that's what happened. So I popped back on, and I'm like, "Are you trying out the weather?"
No.
So I'm talking, and you're not responding, and I'm like, "And what happened?"
Well,
and then I'm like, I don't exist.
Yeah. What I did is I kept your microphone down just in case, you'd sit back down. I figured maybe you walked away from the microphone. You came and sit back down.
Groan.
And go, all right. When is this
flushing.
MF? Yeah. I mean, I have no idea what happens. So I never let someone assume that a mic is always hot. I always make sure.
No, it was definitely not a hot mic.
Yeah. So that's all I've got. Yeah, we're done.
Can you redo it since I'm back? No, I'm kidding. Can we?
It already went in the circular filing system over here.
Just they can see that on video too.
I know.
Let's cut away then, and we'll come back. And now I'm not even going to move. Let's just do that. When we come back, you choose the news. It's George Brauchler on the George Show in a hotel room, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Got to get right to it. You choose the news. William.
Yes, sir. It is that time of the morning where we play everybody's favorite fake radio news game show. You choose the news. We have scoured the interwebs for just a few minutes this morning to find stupid stories, to give them these fake headlines to play our fake radio news game because, well, they're continuing to pay us for it. And again, I'm as confused about it as you are. But here are our headlines, sir. Alrighty. Phillies hate Wally. Headline number 2, hide and go seek, war edition. Headline number 3, left or right makes all the difference. Headline number 4, just make sure he's not hungry. Alrighty, so your headlines yet again are Phillies hate Wally, hide and go seek, war edition, left or right makes all the difference, and just make sure he's not hungry. Your choice.
Hide and go seek, please.
Hide and go seek, war edition. Ukrainian police say they have finally found a missing missile system. Yes, they found a Tor air defense system after the Russians left it behind in the Chernihiv region. Where did they find it? In someone's garage. Local residents said, well, the Russians left it behind. It's a bunch of missiles. We thought we could use them to shoot at them later. So we just took it and put it in our garage. Because where would you store the missiles? You know, you come across missiles in a war field and you just think, obviously, goes in the garage. That's my first choice. Isn't that where you put your missiles when you guys are on the base?
That's right.
Yeah,
always.
garage. I thought
Because
so.
you never know.
You never know. Yeah. So next choice. Phillies hate Wally. Left or right makes all the difference.
Phillies hate Wally.
The Phillies do hate Wally. The Philadelphia Phillies hate Wally. In fact, they denied Wally entrance into a recent game against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Yes, it is awful. But why did Wally want to get in? Well, Joe Henry arrived at Citizens Bank Park walking his emotional support animal, Wally, on a leash, claiming that he needs to have the animal with him when he's there in the ballpark. Now, the Phillies said, do you know, sir, that only certified service dogs and service dogs in training for guests with special needs are welcome. Your animal is not prohibited. And he said, why don't you love my emotional support alligator? Yes, Wally is a 5-foot alligator that he walks, of course, on a leash. Yeah, not so much. I don't understand that. I have snakes. They're not emotional support snakes. It's not the same. I don't understand.
Could they be, though? Could you make them that?
I guess so if I really tried hard. But yeah,
I love the idea of you boarding a plane.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, wrapped around your neck.
Yeah, exactly. No, can't take this off. All right.
Yeah.
Final choice this morning. Left or right makes all the difference, or just make sure he's not hungry.
I think as this show has pointed out time and again, left and right does make all the difference.
Yes, left and right does make all the difference. Authorities in Los Angeles, California, the county sheriff's department is looking at a possible hate crime. However, they're not really searching for the Nazis. They're searching for the kids. Why? Well, they were investigating incidents in Pacific and 77th Street area where swastikas were spray painted on multiple vehicles in the neighborhood. But yet again, the sheriff's officials say, we're looking for kids, not for the actual Nazis. Why? Well, because the swastikas were facing the wrong way. And they kind of figured, there
is a right way for swastikas?
Yeah, there's a right way. That points to the right. And these swastikas on the car pointed to the left. So they're assuming that, the actual Nazis probably would know which direction the swastika is supposed to face. If not, they could easily look at their, T-shirts or their tattoos. So one or the other. That there is an easy way for them to check. But the fact that these were all done the wrong way, the police are saying it probably is because of the children's. So, yeah, that's it. That's all we got.
Kids got to know their swastikas.
I know, they have to. What are they teaching them in school anyway? And that is the end of today's You Choose the News. But today, do we have a discount for you? Yes, you can save 50% on the Joe Biden pedal car. Yes, Joe loved his as a kid. You can go green and lose weight at the same time. You can't afford an EV, you poor. Get the Joe Biden pedal car today. Cool sunglasses and helmet provided. Alrighty, sir. Back to you. That's all I got.
But that's a good choice for an advertiser. I don't know how many seconds we have left. This is the challenge of doing it remotely. Is Billy will get in my ear and whisper something, but it's not like you're on my hair.
We'll do it on the air. 22.
It's like he says seconds in my ear, and then I know I have a few seconds left. Listen, here's what we have to talk about, man. Big history made yesterday that impacts all of America, all of us. Guy's name is Kevin McCarthy. Want to get your thoughts on it when we come back. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Chaos is somebody who we cannot trust with their word. There's nothing selfish about wanting a Speaker of the House who tells the truth.
That was Representative Matt Gaetz. He comes out of Florida. He's a Republican, not a McCarthy fan. And Kevin McCarthy, in a historic vote yesterday, was ousted as Speaker. And when I say historic, I mean ain't nobody that's been Speaker of the House of Representatives been voted out of office in the history of the country. That's kind of a big deal. That's the kind of history you don't want to be making. But Kevin McCarthy, who had only been at the helm for mere moments relative to others, remember, it was that contentious, how many votes was there? Like 15 votes to get him installed as Speaker back in January. And now he is done. Matt Gaetz had always had a personal grudge of some kind for some reason against McCarthy. And in his speech on the floor yesterday, calling for the vote to kick him out of his spot, he was referring in that clip to chaos. He was responding to the fact that those who were opponents of ousting McCarthy said this was going to lead to chaos. You know, we've never done this, that kind of thing. And his response is, hey, it's chaos to do what we've been doing. It's chaos to continue to vote for these bigger and bigger deficits and all this other stuff. And so that was his way of doing it. He turned out to be successful. Kevin McCarthy, and I cannot remember the vote now. I want to say 220 to 219. There may have been some abstentions in there, but it wasn't a big gap. And really what it took, oh, by the way, this is my favorite part of this. In part, Matt Gaetz is upset with Kevin McCarthy because Kevin McCarthy worked a deal with Democrats to keep the government going through that continuing resolution last week. That was the last straw for him, that he worked with the Democrats. Stay focused on this, folks. In order to oust Kevin McCarthy from the speakership, Matt Gaetz and 7 other Republicans had to vote with the Democrats. That's exactly right. There was no way that 8 could do it on their own. They had to vote with the Democrats to give the majority necessary to oust Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Now, our congressional delegation here in Colorado, we have 8 members, but only 3 are Republicans. That's Lauren Bobert, Ken Buck, and Doug Lamborn. Still trying to figure out Congresswoman Bobert's schedule. I think she's going to try to find a way to do this sometime. I just told her, hey, anytime between 7 and 10, we'll just put you on to have a conversation. And then Ken Buck I reached out to, and Ken just said he couldn't do it, which is a bummer because we'd love to have Ken on because he was one of those votes. He's one of the votes to oust Speaker McCarthy. Congresswoman Bobert and Lamborn, they were not. They voted to maintain him in that position, at least for now. And so we're at a place we've never been before at a time that seems pretty precarious, right? Like we're all not just fat and happy in a peace-loving world, and we have time to dawdle over the leadership of this party. So it was kind of an epic day. And I caught most of this stuff while I was at the airport in Newark, of all places, wandering around the United Club, trying to figure out how to get sound on this thing. So it was me doing this hodgepodge thing, trying to listen. But some of the stuff that Billy got, I thought was telling. Billy's got a clip of Kevin McCarthy. I believe this isn't in defense of himself. This is after the vote, Billy.
Unfortunately, 4% of our conference can join all the Democrats and dictate who can be the Republican Speaker in this House. I don't think that rule is good for the institution, but apparently I'm the only one. I believe I can continue to fight, maybe in a different manner. I will not run for Speaker again. I'll have the conference pick somebody else.
Yeah, that's a big deal. That's Kevin McCarthy. Billy clarified me. It's 216 to 210. That's right. I knew it was something like a 4-6 to something swing vote there that took place there. But Kevin McCarthy, who I listened to a little bit of his speech before that, and he had talked about the honor of serving as Speaker, and then kind of went back through his biography, which I did not know. I thought it was kind of fascinating. California kid who ended up answering an ad in the paper to apply to go be an intern for his congressman's office, and they rejected him. They rejected him to go be an intern, so he later turned around and became that congressman. So I just thought that was a fascinating story. Guy was out there when as a young man, and it was in a convenience store or a grocery store, I think after filling up with gas, and decided to buy a lottery ticket and won like $5,000. Used that money to start an investment fund that actually did pretty well for him, and he turned it into a business and all this other stuff. And I just thought, man, I love those stories. Those are the things you don't get to hear about with these folks when you know them as just Speaker of the House or the guy that Matt Gaetz hates and all this other stuff. Very different, by the way, background and upbringing than Matt Gaetz. Nonetheless, here we are at a place where the divisions now are probably deeper than they were before the vote was taken. And we had deep divisions as Republicans. You know that. There's some other clips that we have here. There is, let's get to the Gaetz one where did we do that one already, Billy, where he moves to remove McCarthy? Or is it on the gate? Oh, no, this is after the fact. Do the one after the fact.
We are $33 trillion in debt. We are facing $2.2 trillion annual deficits. We face a de-dollarization globally that will crush Americans, working class Americans. Kevin McCarthy is a feature of the swamp. He has risen to power by collecting special interest money and redistributing that money in exchange for favors. We are breaking the fever now, and we should elect a speaker who's better. What paralyzed the House of Representatives was not taking up appropriations bills. We left for a 6-week vacation while the appropriations process hung in the balance. And because I forced these people to take a few votes, you think I'm paralyzing the House of Representatives? I think the House of Representatives has been paralyzed for the last several decades as we've refused to pass a budget, as we've governed by continuing resolution and omnibus bill. So I think that this represents the ripping off of the Band-Aid. And that's what we need to do to get back on track.
Yeah, listen, one guy, Matt Gaetz, did not make this happen, but this was the guy who was kind of the face of this movement. And it was only possible because of the narrow margin by which the Republicans have the majority. Had they had a 10, 15, 20 seat majority, nobody ever hears from Matt Gaetz again. He's just carping out there from Florida, from Richville. But in this particular case, because every little vote mattered, remember what concession McCarthy had to give at the time he became Speaker. He had to agree to reduce the number of votes down necessary to call for a removal from Speaker, from 5 votes down to 1. And that allowed Matt Gaetz to be that 1 vote. And then he got to himself the handful of other Republicans that he needed to vote with the Democrats. And think about that. I mean, that goes on your epitaph. Voted with the Democrats to oust the Republican Speaker. That's a tough one. This is why I want to have the conversation with Congresswoman Bobert and Congressman Buck. And they're both people that are willing to step up to the plate and answer questions. So I appreciate that. But we got to know the answer why and what's better. What's going to happen after this? Part of me, and I've said this before about the state party, part of me hopes in some weird world, Matt Gaetz becomes Speaker of the House. I just think it's like, dude, you want it. You should have it. You've earned it, my friend. Now let's see what you can get done. And a guy who appears to have spent a career doing nothing but bomb throwing and division, probably not going to be able to shift gears into consensus building and charge, but I'd love to give him the chance to do that. Maybe this is the leader that we need. But I think the bigger question, the one I have for you out there, is what is your reaction to this? Was this good? Was it bad? Was it needed? What's the way forward? I mean, we've never been here. This is historic. 303-696-1971 is the number. Brian, you're on 710 KNUS. Brian, what do you think?
George, well, it used to be if you really upset the Democrats, you were doing something right. And then if you upset the media, you were doing something right. And now it's come to if you upset the old guard Republicans, you're doing something right. You said this, McCarthy, plain and simple, didn't do what he said he was going to do. He lied. To become Speaker.
He lied? That's what happened when you don't do what you say you're going to do. You're a liar?
Well, yeah, pretty much. You say you're going to do this, and then you don't do it. That's lying. So
Give me an
he
example.
promised to do things. Oh, if I get elected, I will do this. And then you get elected and
What's
you
the
don't
this
do
though?
it.
What's the this?
Impeach Joe Biden. Now, he started an inquiry, which took 9 months. Then he hasn't subpoenaed one person. So that tells the public you're not serious about impeachment, or you have already had a row of subpoenas lined
For
up.
who?
We know for Joe Biden, his son, for
Well, one, you're
all the
never going to
people.
subpoena the president of the United States. That doesn't make any
Okay,
sense.
Job. Okay, his son.
Well,
All
and
his
what do you
family that
expect from his son, who's now facing criminal charges?
George.
He's
I
going to show
expect
up and be subject to questions by
I
Comer and the group.
expect subpoena. I don't know what he's going to say. I want subpoenas. That tells me
But for
you're
what
serious.
purpose, man? The
To
subpoenas
get
have to be
people
more than
on
the
oath.
symbolic. Aha, we're bringing
It's
you
not.
into what?
To ask you questions about why you received money through a shell company being Joe Biden's niece and what your job duties were there. How about that?
And they say, hey, I'm not going to answer on the advice of counsel.
Right.
And then you
Well,
say,
then at
well,
least that shows the whole
better.
public. It shows the whole public they're not willing to answer questions. That implies guilt. So there's number one. He didn't do that.
Hang on.
It does, George. It
Invoking the
implies
Fifth
guilt.
Amendment. Hold on. Invoking the Fifth Amendment and refusing to answer questions under oath suggests guilt, Donald Trump?
Oh, again, it suggests guilt when there's evidence towards it. I mean, the American public can sit back, George, and say 9 members of his family received money through 20 shell companies, upwards to $20 million. You can sit back there and go, something
your
smells
gripe
funny.
with McCarthy is he didn't issue a bunch of subpoenas that were either going to be ignored or were going to be practically ridiculous, worthless, because he needed to just issue the subpoenas because we wanted to get people to ignore them so we could say, aha, you're as guilty as we thought you were.
Argument.
Hold on. But because he launched an inquiry, he just didn't do it soon enough. That's why we ousted him.
He said, no, that's one of the reasons, because there's one of his promises broken. Number 2, he said he was going to reduce the deficit. And instead, he signed with the Democrats. He's the one that signed with the Democrats first to do a continuing resolution, which is the same stuff we do every single year. We attach all this stuff to a stupid one spending bill when all Gates wants and told him to become speaker, we want individual spending bills. He lied about that, and he partnered with the Democrats to get all this fat sent down the line.
He lied about doing individual spending bills?
He said he would have individual appropriation bills for spending. That was one of the deals that they came up with for him to become speaker, is no more of these big continuing spending bills that everything's thrown in together. We want individual bills where the American public can see what we're voting on. McCarthy lied about that, partnered with the Democrats, and got a big continuing resolution. And the talking point is, oh, we're not funding the troops. How about we individually fund the troops? How about create a bill that individually funds the troops? How about create a bill that
pretty disappointed though in the other 216 Republicans or 210 Republicans that didn't see it that way? How do you explain that? Like guys like John Jordan or Jim Jordan. I'm sorry, Jim Jordan.
Because they're either worried about their career, or they're worried about keeping their fat cat constituents that fund their campaigns happy, that had money in those appropriations, that had money in the continuing resolution. All I'm saying is, why can't we pass individual spending bills? And then if the Democrats don't want to sign on for individual things that we can make arguments on, they look bad. But we didn't. And McCarthy could have done that simply. Gates had 6 of them, appropriation bills ready to go that were individually funding things that we believe in. But McCarthy wouldn't go for that. Is it
your belief then that this is only going to work to the benefit of Republicans? Now that McCarthy's out of the way, we can install fill in the blank, and now things will really get done.
Well, let's do individual appropriate. Let's do what Matt Gaetz says.
I'm asking you if you think that's what's going to happen as a result of this.
Well, probably not, because the old guard GOP, fat cats, corporation donors, they're going to sabotage Gaetz now, just like Gaetz sabotaged them. So that's going to be a tit for tat instead of doing what's right for the country.
What do you mean you have to sabotage Gaetz? The dude is largely a pariah in the House Republican caucus. He did that to himself.
I don't think anything. Well, George, do you disagree with the individual spending bills? You disagree with going more in debt?
Well, it's not.
I
That's
don't.
not my
I
issue.
totally agree with
That-
that. That's not a personal
Yeah,
vendetta.
I do too.
That's
That's
a
not my issue. My
responsibility to the
issue is,
country.
okay, you've taken down the speaker. Who replaces him that now gets this done?
Scalise probably would. I think Scalise would do it.
Scalise, who
Scalise
voted
is
to
a,
maintain
you know,
McCarthy.
he did.
Scalise,
But
who
now
voted to
that he,
maintain McCarthy. How do you explain that?
right. Well, now that you get somebody in there that knows the country's serious about the spending problem. The country's serious
Hold on, the
about we
country's
want
serious about the spending
individual.
problem because
Oh,
8
yeah.
Republicans voted with the Democrats, Brian?
Oh, if you get the pulse of people that I'm talking to, like people at my work, they're not all Republicans, I can tell you that. And they're all saying, you know what? We're sick of spending money. We're sick of it. We're in
Hmm.
debt. People are sick of
Yeah,
it
I don't like
all
it
over
either.
the country. And so we're worried about our reelection bid. I'm worried about my grandkids being dirt broke. I'm worried about my kids being dirt
Because
broke
of government spending.
oh my God, it's going to come to roost eventually, George. It's eventually going to come to roost.
Listen,
Maybe
I
not in
hate
my
the debt too,
lifetime.
but I was one of the guys that hated the debt when Trump blew it up. I was that guy too. So for me, it's not, hey, now I'm really upset about the debt. I've been upset about the debt since before Obama, and that's independent of Republicans or Dems. I presume you are equally pissed off at Donald Trump for the amount of debt that he presided over.
If you look at what his debt was spent on and you look at what this fat appropriations bill was spent on, it's very much different.
It's not the debt. It's what they're spending on it. You could have any size
COVID was a lot
debt.
of spending. I think some debt's necessary at this point. We can't say we have no debt because then everything would shut down. So we have to have debt, but we have to be smart about it, which what Gates wants to do. Individual spending bills. So then we can say, okay, yeah, we got to fund the government. We got to fund the military. We got to fund the border. We got to fund this.
But to be clear, the debt increased 40% under Donald Trump, from about 20 trillion to 27.75 trillion bucks. That's
right,
not just COVID spending.
Well, Gates wanted to end it on both sides and not end it forever. He wanted to do individual spending bills. I think Trump should have done individual spending bills when he had Congress. He didn't. So he was wrong in doing that. McCarthy shot himself in the foot. He should have done what he said he was going to do. Now everyone wants to call Gates a fire thrower. Everything he says isn't fire throwing. It's facts. Sign the individual spending bills. Why didn't McCarthy want to? Why didn't McCarthy want to sign individual spending bills? Tell me that. Why didn't he want to go that?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that. I know that this doesn't fix it. This doesn't fix it. And to suggest that 8 members of the House Republicans who defected to vote with the Democrats, and buddy, keep in mind, you are on the side of the Democrats in the House of Representatives in this outcome. You are with them.
And so was McCarthy.
Those 8 guys
when he got their votes.
Those eight guys don't represent the will of anything other than at best their 8 congressional districts. So to suggest that this was America's fed up with the debt and America's fed, well, where was America yesterday in that vote?
If you take the pulse on it, America's tired of it. And what Gates said,
it's not a question of pulse, man. You said Kevin McCarthy got voted out because of these things and because of America and all this other stuff. At the end of the day, it was 8 Republicans who voted with the Democrats to commit this historic thing. Now we'll see if it turns out to be a good thing. But Brian, you think Scalise, who voted to keep McCarthy as House Speaker, he's going to come in and he'll do it differently?
I don't know, but we know now that thank God for these patriots who are going to hold our leaders accountable. I don't care if it's 8 or 1 or 2 or none.
Are the Democrats patriots?
At least it's some. No,
are the Democrats who voted to oust McCarthy
themselves.
Patriots just like Matt Gates?
No, they want to see this fail, but it had to happen. They want to see it fail. And McCarthy's the one that sided
so it was
with the
their
Democrats
motivation for the same vote. Democrats, they don't have patriotic motives in voting to oust McCarthy, but Gates has patriotic motives to oust McCarthy. So same outcome,
Democrats
same procedure, same vote.
Democrats will spend us into oblivion until we become government
more than
dependent.
a 40% increase in deficit.
Oh, they will do it. They would spend every single dime that we made until we rely on them for everything. They would spend it all the way through. So you can't compare this to Donald Trump like you always want to do. McCarthy sided with the Democrats first.
Why not?
He sided with the Democrats. You need to bring that point up. McCarthy sided with the
Who did?
Democrats to get McCarthy did to get the fat continuation with all this pork for their projects
So
and his
if
projects.
if the sin was working with Democrats,
So it ain't us
is
siding
this
with them.
sin not a sin because working with Democrats accomplished a better goal?
We didn't work with Democrats to get him ousted. We just voted to oust him. And
You
if they
did.
want to join along, that's up
No,
to them.
hey, sir,
He
I'm
worked
sorry.
with Democrats
Brian, you're wrong
to
because
get
it was a
ousted.
Republican named Matt Gaetz who stood up to call for him to be removed. It wasn't the Dems. It was Matt Gaetz that did it. So
Right,
it wasn't them doing it. We did it.
And Matt Gaetz didn't side with the Democrats to get McCarthy ousted. He sided
He
with his
did.
caucus. He decided with.
No, he didn't side with his caucus. His caucus didn't vote with him. His caucus didn't vote with him.
Well, did he get together with the Democrats and say, "Hey, let's get McCarthy out of there"? No, he just brought it up for a vote. What McCarthy did was he reached across the aisle and sided and worked with Democrats to get a fat continuation bill signed to make them happy and make himself look good.
By the way,
And
you got to reread
so
the
he's
information on that
problem.
CR, Brian,
McCarthy's
because
the problem.
that CR was clean, and that CR also gave in to most of the demands of the folks in that contingent, including no funding for Ukraine and all that other stuff. So this wasn't some fat cat CR thing. This thing actually only kept the government going until the middle of November.
Right. And then what are we going to do in November? The exact same thing. Sign
Well, we
another
won't know now.
continuing resolution.
Now we don't know what could have happened. Now we've got
the next speaker
now we've
not
got to
going to
spend
sign
time
another
figuring out who's going to be
continuing
the speaker.
resolution. The next speaker shouldn't do it because then he'll get out too. And we keep outing them until they do the right thing, George, which is
And what happens to the government while we're
sending-
spending all this time outing speakers?
Well, what do? Is we sign appropriation bills that fund the necessary needs of the
No,
government.
but you can't do that because you don't have a speaker.
Why?
There's no way to build a
Well,
consensus.
the next speaker can do that.
No, but then
next
you said
speaker
the next
can
speaker,
say-
if they fail to do that, we'll just get rid of them too. We'll just keep killing off the top of the leadership until we get the outcome that we want. And that we, by the way, is 8 Republicans.
Not if you sign the 6 appropriation bills
And all
that
the Dems.
Gates brought to the floor. If you sign those and the Dems go against them, then they're not funding the necessity of government. So you put bills on the floor that everyone can see and everyone can get, the country can get on board with. Even Democrats would say, "Yeah, fund the troops, fund the border, of course." But
They would
McCarthy
not.
didn't do that. McCarthy
They
didn't
would
want to
not,
put
buddy.
individual
Nothing you're
spending
talking
bills.
about. Nothing you're talking about would pass the Senate. And again, I
Well, then
appreciate that you're trying to say.
they're on the record, George, of not voting for the right thing.
Yeah,
And then we can
that's
bring
going to
that
make a difference to the way
argument.
the media tells the story, Brian. That's going
It
to make a
doesn't
difference.
matter.
You know, a
You
couple
can
weeks
still say it, George. You can
Yeah,
still
you can say anything you want, but you don't have the megaphone to make it the narrative. The media does. They're not
Well,
going to
and
look
if
at
that's
this and go,
what- if
well,
that's-
those
if that's what
Republicans
all
have
that
just painted
matters.
the Dems into a corner. Brian, were you one of the ones that was a naysayer of Ken Buck's a couple weeks ago with some of the decisions he'd made?
Yeah, CNN Ken, of course, he's a sellout.
Okay,
And yes,
well,
he voted.
he
to
was
oust
one of
him.
the guys that voted to oust McCarthy. Now what?
Yeah,
Is
because
he a patriot?
I think his motives are way different than Gates. Ken
So
Buck
it's no
showed his
longer
true
about
colors.
what you do. It's no longer whether you vote. It's no longer whether you help advance a cause that you agree with. If your motives aren't the right motives, you get no credit for the decision.
Well, you got to have the right motive, of course. If you're voting
You
on
do?
something that's the right decision, but you're deciding with the Democrats, like the Democrats voted to oust McCarthy, which I think is the right decision. I don't think they're patriots because they did it because they wanted to see chaos in the House.
How about
Same
this?
with-
We have
I think Ken
Congressman
Buck is a
Lamborn.
Democrat.
Hold on. We have Congressman Lamborn and Congresswoman Bobert. Are they not patriots because they didn't vote to oust McCarthy?
I don't know why Bobert didn't do it. I can tell you that right now. And I kind of lost faith in her too. After
But is it
her-
possible then to
after her
vote to
promiscuous
maintain
lie,
McCarthy and
after
still be
she's
a
acting
patriot?
like a floozy
Brian,
in public?
can you
and
vote?
then, well,
Yeah,
George, she's
Brian,
acting
can
like
you-
a floozy in public and then
I
lying
understand.
about it.
That's
And
not
then,
the question. The
so,
question is,
so how am I
can you
supposed to care
vote
what
to
she has to
maintain
say now?
McCarthy? Can you
She's not
vote
even
to
an
maintain
upright
McCarthy
person.
and still be a patriot?
Sure. Sure,
how
you
is that
can,
possible?
George.
How is that possible? How can you be a patriot and vote to keep McCarthy in office?
Well, I mean, I don't know why these people I don't know why these people voted for McCarthy. I really don't. Probably because they thought there wasn't going to get enough votes to oust him, and they wanted to keep their committees or whatever the heck he has over their head. But George, all Gates was asking for was individual spending bills, appropriations to individual things that everyone could see. If something's wrong with that, then something's wrong with this country. And if McCarthy didn't have the guts to do that,
Well,
he doesn't have the guts to be the Speaker of the House. And it's not us siding with
we'll see if
Democrats.
it's a question of guts, man. We'll see if it's a question of guts. But what I appreciate is at the end of the day, it sounds like for you, patriotism is a product of motive, not what you actually do.
Well, no, George, and don't just consolidate it down to that for me. It isn't. It's got much more to do with who you are, what you believe in, how you support this country. And I can tell you what, I think a patriot is somebody who's standing up against wrongful spending, fat cat corporations, and sick of putting us $1 trillion in debt. I think that's a patriot, and that's what Matt Gaetz did.
Yep.
And if you want to call it chaos and siding with the Democrats, that's just the Democrat talking point. Go for it. But I can tell you now, this is putting everybody on notice.
If logic is a Democrat talking point, then the Republicans are in trouble. Brian, thanks for the phone call, man. I took you long because I appreciate the conversation. I disagree with you on two grounds. One, I do not think that Donald Trump is a liar just because he promised to have the wall built and the Mexicans to pay for it, and that didn't happen. I don't think he's a liar for that. I also don't think he is not a patriot simply because he blew up the debt in a way that the last two presidents before him together couldn't have done. I don't think that keeps him from being a patriot either. I just don't think those descriptions fit Donald Trump. Listen, when we come back, we're going to get more of your calls, more of your texts. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Why should you buy your next vehicle at Castle Rock Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram? We make car shopping easy. We have a huge inventory of new and pre-owned vehicles. We can even custom order. We make it easy. Easy financing, friendly staff. And when it comes to quality service, our expert technicians keep your vehicle in top shape. Visit us today off of Highway 25 and Plum Creek, or shop online at castlerockcdjr.com. Castle Rock Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. Car shopping made easy.
And I think it's sending a terrible signal to the electorate in advance of the 24 election that this Republican majority cannot govern itself. And we need to change that.
That's Congressman Steve Womack talking about the aftermath of the Gates-led vote yesterday. Here's some text. Really wish the feds would have gotten Gates so we don't have to see this Beavis and Butthead looking entitled little punk. So sick of hearing him whine about some deal. Here's another. I'm a godless heathen lefty, and even I don't like to see this sort of chaos. As a younger person, I would cheer for this kind of nuttery, but I don't think this is good for the country. The job is to govern, not light stuff on fire. I had to correct that last little part, but I get that. Says, sorry, you have no argument. I don't even know what that means. Both ways, Brian. Geez. So it's okay to go with the Democrats when it comes to budgets and out of control spending, but not when it comes to removing a leader who's not doing what he said he was going to do. Matt Gaetz is not working with the Democrats to oust the leader. Also, is there not a temporary Speaker of the House? Yep, there's a pro tem guy out of North Carolina. But I think the better question isn't, it's not okay to work with the Democrats on the budget. It's the reverse. Is if it was wrong to work with the Democrats on the budgets and stuff, is it less wrong to work with them to oust the Speaker? And I'm anxious to hear, I have an open mind to this. Tell me how things will be better. Tell me how you see the next 5 weeks playing out before the next government shutdown. If it's not remarkably different, what happens? Is this just it's just going to be musical chairs in the speakership? We just continue to take down speakers until we find one that can figure out a way to make a handful of vote majority into something dominant that changes the scope of Congress moving forward? I'm anxious. If that can happen, whoever that person is, man, they're a superstar. Right now, number 2 in line for Joe Biden's job, should, God forbid, horrible things happen, is a dude nobody can identify out of North Carolina. I mean, if you can name him, it's because you're paying attention to current events over the last day. My guess is you didn't know who he was before, but that guy is the guy that gets installed as president if, God forbid, something happened to the president and the vice president. Here's another. If the Dems were so happy with McCarthy, why vote to remove him? This has got to be one of those. The meme is the dude eating popcorn. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing that gets sent out. They are sitting back, loving this, watching the Republicans feast on themselves and what they're going to try to characterize. And I don't know how you push back against this, as not only do they fail to lead, they can't even manage themselves. That's how jacked up this Republican caucus is. Now, whether that plays well in individual House races, I don't know, but it's interesting. It's interesting how many claimed Republicans out there see this as a victory when it was only 8 Republicans that joined this. So what does that mean for the others? What does that mean for the 210 who oppose this? They're not patriots. They're traitors. I don't know the answer. 303-696-1971 is the number. Let's go to the phone lines. Frank, you're on 710 KNUS. Frank, what do you think?
Well, George, thank you for giving voice and trying to make some sense out of this and adding your skills as a barrister to pose some of the counterpoints. I'm afraid we're in for a long slog. I don't see any real solution, because sometimes I almost feel like we're locked in a room with two parties. The opposing party seems to be a schizophrenic off his meds who is destined or wants to tear down everything, and for whatever reason, greed or politics or Marxist type things, socialist type things. And it's just this constant battle back and forth with the majorities not ever reaching any great superior forces unless the economy goes into the tank. It's hard for me to blame McCarthy. I think he was doing his little ego thing to try to help. And like Gingrich says, he's been around for a long time trying to help. But I can also not blame Gates, because he sees this terrible debt thing and our crazy spending. And there's this guy, Tom Coburn, years ago, he's passed on now. He wrote a book called The Debt Bomb. I don't know if you remember that book. But we've been dealing
I
with
don't.
this.
I don't remember that.
It's called Debt Bomb by Tom Coburn. He was a senator.
Oh, yeah, Senator Tom Coburn. Yep.
MD. Anyway, it seems like everybody is like, what can we get out of this government? Well, we're not going to get much of anything out of the government if we don't continue trying to work on solutions that contribute to the GDP. If we don't have a strong GDP, we don't have a great country. So it's hard to get Democrats and Republicans to come together. And the person who's the best solution for the time is someone who's going to be able to put those two together. But that seems to be the hard problem. And I just don't see any progress being made. We're just doing these little cat fights. I got a kick out of one of your texters. I can't remember whether it was a day you were out or not, that texted in, the only thing better than a functional government is a dysfunctional or a gridlocked government. And so that just means that the old rules are still in play and the new rules don't seem to have much merit. But yet we've got all these issues and forces acting on us from outside, China, Russia, all the other countries that want to come in and get a piece of what they perceive we have. We don't even know what all these congressmen know. I mean, Buck sees things one way, Bobert sees things another way.
I wish I could talk with him about the decision to do this, because my guess is, Brian from Arvada and others were shocked that it was one of the votes to oust McCarthy. So, because it seems inconsistent with, I know Brian was disparaging him with the CNN thing, but that's completely inconsistent with that.
He seems like a knowledgeable and sagacious man. I mean, being a judge in his capacity in the past, has said a lot of good things, and all of a sudden he seems to flip the switch. I don't know whether something has changed in his life, or he sees a bunch of years coming that he'd rather be in a different position, or sees insolvability or ineffectiveness in his current position, and maybe he sees something in a television broadcasting thing as a different way to move policy. I don't know. He hasn't said, and nobody really knows. So I hesitate to judge the man. But we're still left in a mess. You're right. It's only a 45-day solution, and then it's temporary. Nothing much has changed. But nothing will change until we get a majority of the Democrats who seem to come to their senses to want to sit down and help solve problems that are of this country, which is why they're in Washington in the first place.
Both sides seem like they're invested in just holding the other at bay while they get back the majority, and hope to God it's a majority big enough that they can avoid things like this from the wingnuts in their party. And we just couldn't. This is in part, once again, a reflection of what took place in the ballot nationwide in 2022. Had the majority been bigger, we don't have these conversations. This thing isn't happening. We're moving forward in a different way, but it was so narrow. It's so precarious. All of a sudden, a guy like Matt Gaetz can get together with a few other Republicans and upend the apple cart. And that just, I don't know. Frank, I appreciate the call, man. As always, very thoughtful. And I appreciate the kind words. I, like you, I don't know where this thing ends up, but I'm anxious to hear from others. Is this a good thing? A bad thing? What's next? Tell me what's next. 303-696-1971. I need to tell you about Gay Rebel from Empower Home Team. If you are in the market to buy a home, here's some things you need to know. Average agent sells a home in about 43 days. That's about a month and a half. That's about how much time we have left before funding runs out of the government. Gay's team does it faster. They also sell your home for, on average, $30,000 more than other realtors do. And while other realtors are out there selling 2 or 3 or 4 homes a year, these folks are selling so many over the course of the decades that Gay's been doing this. It's got to be thousands. I should ask her the next time she's in thousands. They have a sold in 5 program where you get 6.1% more on average for your home. And that's a 5-day program. Sold in 5. Do yourself a favor. Call up that Empower Home team at Keller Williams at 833-301-SOLD, 833-301-SOLD. Right on your phone. They've got the letters with the numbers, 833-301-SOLD, or you can check them out at gayhasthebuyers.com. That's gay, G-A-Y-E, hasthebuyers.com. When we come back, Frank, Michael, whoever else just filled up Frank's line at 303-696-1971, we'll get you and the other texts. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. Yeah, this was not a song that Matt Gaetz sang to Kevin McCarthy yesterday. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. Going right back to the phone lines. Kevin, I'm sorry. It's Frank number 2. You're on 710 KNUS. Frank?
You can call me the stupid Frank per Billy's definition the other day.
You're the stupid Frank. And what do you think about all this, man?
Well, it's a brave new world, George. Every presidency is going to start with an impeachment, and every speakership is going to start with a vacation or vacating.
Maybe
I feel terrible for McCarthy. I feel terrible for McCarthy because he's a very good Christian man. I know that for a fact.
Yeah.
And but the times have changed. People like me are really tired, really tired of 40, 50 years of the same old mumbo jumbo. It's not personal. Well, I think it was personal. I think the next speaker should be, if Gaetz survives his little thing with, I don't know, what was he doing? Something to do with pornography or something? I don't know. I don't even know. If he survives that, his ethics challenge, then I think maybe put him in. He's been flapping his jaws. Give him a chance to see what he can do. And if it's not him, then I say go with Bobert, especially if she'll guarantee that she'll wear low-cut blouses every day.
Oh, buddy, come on now. I'm interested in the idea of Gaetz taking over, just to be like, dude, you wanted to drive the bus. Come on up here, put the hat on.
Absolutely.
And let's get going. I just can't imagine.
We're right
maybe
behind you.
Maybe the guy turns out to be the young leader we need. I doubt it, just based on his presentation up to this point. But maybe he is.
We don't know till we know, right? I mean,
how does this thing end? What's next, Frank? What's next?
Well, I think we're at the beginning of the end now. And someday, I hope, probably long after I'm worm food, but we'll get back to a normal country where we can talk to each other civilly and all that. But we're not there today.
Is this the process to get us there?
Well, you got to break things to fix things, and I think this is breaking things clearly, but I think it's time for it. And again, I feel terrible for McCarthy. He's a good Christian man, but I don't know. I say give it to Gaetz, and you know what? If it's not Gaetz, I was being facetious about the low-cut blouses from Bobert, but she's a fighter. I mean, I give her money every couple of months. I toss her $100. She's a scrapper, and we need somebody who will get up in Joe Biden's face and call him what he is, a sexist, racist pig. And
is this an act? Do you think that, how Brian had couched it in the terms of, and some others have too, we'll play some clips in the next hour, but some others have couched this in terms of patriotism. Do you see those that voted to oust McCarthy as a patriot?
That's a bunch of BS. We're all patriots. I agree with much of what Brian said, but the patriotism thing, that's mumbo. That's political speak. Give me a break. We need change. We've needed it for a while, and I think Trump was the guy who kind of threw it in there, and now we're going down
so
this
much
path.
of this I think can be traced back to the results of 2016. Frank, thanks for the thoughtful phone call again, man. Always good to hear your voice. Listen, we've got Michael on the line. I promise I'll get to you, and anyone else who fills in those Frank lines. 303-696-1971. Lots of texts. We got more sound to play. Newt Gingrich had some things to say. Wow. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
the one thing I will tell you is doing the right thing isn't always easy, but it is necessary. I don't regret standing up for choosing governing over grievance. It is my responsibility. It is my job. I do not regret negotiating. Our government is designed to find compromise. I don't regret my efforts to build coalitions and find solutions. I was raised to solve problems, not create them. So I may have lost a vote today, but as I walk out of this chamber, I feel fortunate to have served the American people.
George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. That was Kevin McCarthy, the historically ousted Speaker of the House of Representatives. Wasn't even in the job for a full year. Matt Gaetz gets his win and his scalp. And now what? What's next? What's left? Is this the beginning of the solution or the beginning of the end? Is this how we fix things? We've had great callers so far. You can join them at 303-696-1971. Let's go right to the phone lines. Michael, you're on 710 KNUS. Michael, what do you think?
Well, here's what I think. You're going to play Newt Gingrich, his little clip from last night.
Yes,
Are you going to do that?
we are. We are.
Did
you want to comment on that, Michael?
A perfect response. I thought Newt Gingrich nailed it.
Michael, let's do this. Let's do this. You hang on. We'll play it, and then you can comment on it. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. Go ahead, Billy.
Well, first, I think it's a very sad day because I think Kevin McCarthy is one of the most talented leaders I've ever worked with. I think that he accomplished an amazing amount for having a small majority and having to take on both the Senate and the White House. And I think this is really a tragic outcome. This was a leader who both gained seats in 2020, gained seats in 2022, increased the number of women members, increased the number of veterans, increased the number of minority members, and he had a vision for a better future. And let's be clear here, Sean. If the University of Georgia Bulldogs, who are the #1 team in the country right now, if you started a game and 4 of the members of the offensive squad decided they were actually on the Alabama side and began tackling your own people, you probably get them off the field. Well, think about what we saw today. 4% decided they were so morally superior, so intellectually pure, so patriotically better, that they would side with the Democrats, and that's what they did, in order to defeat the entire Republican House caucus. 96% of the Republicans voted for McCarthy. 4% voted against him. From my position as a longtime Republican activist, they're traitors. All 8 of them should, in fact, be primaried. They should all be driven out of public life. What they did was to go to the other team to cause total chaos. We ought to be focusing on Biden. We ought to be focusing on the economy. We ought to be focusing on the border. Instead, you're going to get a week or 10 days of the media focusing on Republican disarray. It's an astonishingly destructive behavior by a handful of egocentric people who think they're superior to 96% of the conference.
Yeah, Michael, that was it. Give me your reactions to that. What do you think?
I thought it was perfect. Really, you have to look at the big picture here. Of course, conservatives want less spending. Of course, we want a lot of the things that Matt Gaetz wants, but you got to approach it differently when you have a razor-thin majority. And Newt Gingrich is exactly right. He understands it. Matt Gaetz comes from a hard right district. He has nothing to worry about. 18 Republicans that are in the House of Representatives came from districts that voted for Biden. You got to play that game, whether we like it or not. And we got to keep our powder dry and just play the game. I was involved in Colorado politics and Denver politics with the Republican Party. And we spent more time fighting with each other and paying, rather than paying attention to what was going on. The Democrats brought unity and money to Colorado. You know what happened? You saw what happened to Colorado. It's hard blue now.
Yeah,
I lived it.
Michael, when you hear the former speaker, Newt Gingrich, and folks may remember this, 30 years ago, this dude was the architect of the contract with America, took back the House first time in 50 years. Big deal. Kind of put us on a path to continue to have these battles for the majority in the House. This guy came out and said that those 8 people that voted with the Dems to oust McCarthy, he used the term traitor. What do you think of that?
Well, I don't know about that word traitor, but they're ideological lunatics. They don't look at the big picture. And they look at one thing. I listened to the representative of South Carolina. She kept talking about her people in her district. Well, I understand that, but we still have to get things done in Washington. It's a terrible place. It's a terrible place, and the Democrats have ruined everything. They ruin everything they touch, everything, and we have to just be smart about how we deal with them.
I think the traitor term is poorly used here by a guy that I have a lot of respect for, Newt Gingrich.
Yeah,
We throw it
I think
around.
so.
We throw it around so easily. It doesn't mean anything anymore. I mean, traitor to what? Traitor to the Republican Party, traitor to your caucus, traitor to your country. I mean, none of that makes any sense to me, and it doesn't help advance the conversation. But
we're just not smart about it. The Democrats had a huge party last night. They had a huge celebration.
I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it.
They could sit there and watch the Republicans just kill themselves.
I'm sure
we
gummies
do
and
it time
LSD stickers
time
everywhere.
Again.
Yeah.
We do it time and time again.
There's another
And it's
question, though, that came out of what Newt said. Newt said, I think every one of these 8 should be primaried because of their judgment. What do you think of that?
Well, I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know. Those 8 came from hard right districts. They didn't have nothing to worry about, and I don't know.
Well,
one of them
is our own Ken Buck. Ken's a friend and my congressman, and he voted to do this. And I love to have the conversation with him. Like, just talk me through the thought process here, and how will this make us better?
Yeah, I don't know Ken personally, but I worked with him in Colorado. When he was, and he comes from a hard right district, doesn't he, in Weld County?
Oh, the 4th CD is very Republican. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't understand it, but he should know better. Really, he should know better.
Well,
that's how I would.
And I think he's a smart enough guy that I don't think he makes decisions like this on a whim or without thinking through the rest of the process. I'm just anxious to have that conversation with him, hopefully on air. But I just want to hear this is the logic behind it, and this is why this puts us in a better position to do what we need to do.
The interesting thing is, okay, the next speaker, he's going to be faced with the same slim majority. He's going to be faced with the same problems.
Oh yeah,
everything. And what's going to really happen? Do you think Matt Gaetz is going to get what he wants? Hell no. This is all a big waste of time, and the Democrats are loving it. They just love how we stab ourselves in the back. They love it.
It's a popcorn eating moment for them. Michael, thank you for the phone call. I appreciate it. And thanks for getting us into the Newt Gingrich piece. We've been hanging on to that, think how we're going to use this. 303-696-1971. Chris is on the phone. Michael's line is open. Fill that thing. Lots of texts. Here's one. I trust Ken Buck. He's never come across to me as a radical loose cannon. I'd like to hear his take. Me too. I feel the same way. And this is a guy, what's interesting to me too, is this is a guy that just a couple weeks ago, people were like, oh, CNN Ken and Ken bad and Ken got to go. We got a primary Ken. And now all of these same people are like, wait. He voted to oust McCarthy. That was such a brilliant move. That was a great. Well, now what? Now Newt Gingrich says we got to primary these guys. It says, here's another text. What Newt wants to do to the 8 is what Gaetz did to Kevin. In a way, yeah, I guess that's in a way. McCarthy is a Christian and a decent man, but he's going up against some pretty bad evil. So I think you have to fight fire with fire. I'm sorry to say you can't be weak and take on the Democrats. And I don't know if his was a product of weakness or that he believed that there was some way to get consensus on just enough that he could keep the things moving forward and preserve the opportunity to fight for bigger issues down the road. Maybe when they had a bigger majority. Another text, your caller called himself a good Christian and then said he contributes to Lauren Bobert. What a hypocrite. I don't see how you can say that either. I can see how you can find the things that have been put in the media and stuff about her to be contrary to what you think a person ought to be doing with a certain set of morals and values. But I also think that, man, especially when you're a Christian, and I'm very sensitive to this, mistakes are baked in to humanity. Mistakes are baked in. And my God, if you're a politician, your mistakes get amplified times a billion. But at the end of the day, what makes Christianity work isn't the, locked knee adherence to every precept that's out there. It's the idea that you're trying to be better every single day. But when you fall down, you can count on your maker and hopefully your fellow Christians to help you get yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep you moving forward. Forgiveness is what we do in the religion. And I worry about the fact that we're getting to a rapid place here too, where we're going to treat religion, faith, and Christianity the way we've treated partisanship. Like, oh, you're just a Christian in name only, or you're you know what I mean? That's kind of disparaging thing. Here's something. One of the most important things that President Trump explained to the public was the power and influence the lobbyists have on most politicians. This is a prime example of that in action. Explain that to me. Which is an example? Is it the way Congress runs? Or are you talking about this act with McCarthy? 303-696-1971 is the number. Let's go to the phone lines. Chris, you're on 710 KNUS. Chris, what do you think? Oh, Chris dropped off. Dang it, Chris. I'm sorry we lost you. Hey, let me do this as we're waiting for more. There's a bunch of texts. I just can't get to all of them, but I'm reading through them as I'm doing 8 million other things. Here's one of them that I get to tell you about. You know that UltraCur is a brand new sponsor of the show. We're so thrilled to have these guys on. If you didn't hear the podcast or the interview at the beginning of the week, you got to go back and listen to it. Two great dudes who got together with some other smart medical science type people and have figured out a way to use curcumin to fix a lot of the issues that result in the aches and the soreness and all those other things that affect our wellness, whether it's at our age or just from use. I'm headed into, I think, a Marine Corps marathon at the end of the month, even though my training dropped off a little bit here over the last 10 days. But part of that is baked into that is the soreness that comes from working out. Well, one of the things that I've found, and I thank these guys for it, that has not made the soreness non-existent. It's always going to be there when you work out, when you try to run 18 to 20 miles, but how long it lasts, how quickly you rebound. That's the piece I notice. And so this patented non-prescription natural capsule that's UltraCur, and that C-U-R at the end, by the way, C-U umlaut R. This is the kind of thing, listen to these stats. Surveys that they've done show 50% of people using UltraCur get relief within 48 hours. That's only 2 days, but half of those actually experience relief within 2 hours. I don't know what would hold you back from giving this a shot. You might say, maybe I don't want to spend a couple bucks. Well, you don't have to. Not up front, not right away. You get a free 3-day trial. Put their studies to the test. Go to any natural grocer, go to the vitamin manager, ask for your free 3-day trial of UltraCur. They'll get this stuff squared away and to you. You can pick up an extra pack, by the way, for a neighbor, a friend, or some other loved one. See how it does on their soreness and aches and pains too. You can also go check them out online at getultranow.com, getultranow.com, and check out what they have there as well. Here are some more of the texts that are coming in. It was it's a personal motive for Buck. Now, I've heard that. I've heard that Ken was frustrated and upset with McCarthy not putting him in a leadership position that he had either previously promised him or that, frankly, Ken earned from what he does out there in judiciary and all that. That might be true, and maybe that's a log on the fire, but I can't believe that's the source of the fire. That might make it easy to drop that lever, but I cannot believe that would be the sole motivation for it, and I know that Ken's got a better answer than that, so I want to hear that. Here's another text. Can you think of any Republican who would get enough Dem votes and center-right GOP votes to be elected speaker? Someone who the Squad and the Gates people would both dislike? I can't, but it would be nice to be able to ignore the fringes of both parties. You know what? I hear the optimism in your voice. I hear how can we save this system in its current form and accomplish something other than just the constant extreme back and forth? I don't think we can do it. And I'm not saying forever. I'm saying for right now. Can't do it. Can't do it with a thin majority. And asking the Dems to be reasonable would be the same thing if the Dems were in our situation and someone texted them, can't you reach out to those Republicans and find the reasonable ones, the ones that aren't so, they'd have the same reaction. We have become so tribal, so partisan, and you can hear it in the use of the terms. Gingrich is part of this group too now. Traitor. Throw around the term traitor. Traitor is someone in the old days you used to kill because they were a traitor to their country. You hung traitors. Is that where we're at now? Or maybe that word just doesn't matter anymore. I think you can be disloyal to a person. I think you can be disloyal to a party or to a movement. You can do things that are violative of your principles. But traitor is different. It's just a different word. Treason is different. And we throw those terms around for everything. Oh, did you vote to oust McCarthy? You're a traitor. I don't believe that. I don't believe Matt Gaetz is a traitor. I believe he's a problem that we have in the party and a problem that we have in the House. He's not a path to a solution. He's a firecracker, and he lit his fuse, man. He's gone off. I don't know what happens after this. 303-696-1971 is the number. The Gingrich sound, I think, and by the way, there are going to be folks that are like, well, Gingrich is part of the problem. He is establishment. And it strikes me that the place we're at now on this vote is that there are 210 members of the Republican establishment, because there's 210 that did not vote to oust Speaker McCarthy. What do you say to them? What do you say to the Comers, to the Boberts, to the MTGs, to the Jim Jordans? All of those people who did not vote to oust McCarthy, are they traitors? Or they're not patriots? What's their problem? What happens from here? I mean, where do we go from here? Because I don't see this as a path towards some sort of a renewed success in leadership for the Republicans. Brian from Arvada, always a good call, said, well, this is it now. Now we can get those individual spending bills and we'll get those voted on. Will we see that? If we do, I think you can look back on this and say, okay, this accomplished what it needed. But if it doesn't happen, then what? If we sneak up on November the 17th, I think that's the date. If we sneak up on November the 17th and we're no closer towards getting consensus on some sort of a budget bill, what then? What then? And in the future, who installs these people? Like if you get a Speaker of the House, do you install these 8 in positions of prominence? Do you give them some sort of authority? Do you have to kowtow to them because they're the ones that are actually now influencing policy because you go if you do something they don't like? And what happens then when other individual congressmen and women get the same idea? What happens when a faction of, I don't know, you can call them rhinos, of rhino Republicans get together and say, nope, we're not going to tolerate what the Speaker's doing. We're not going to tolerate all this stuff. We're just going to vote a different way. We're going to go to the Dems. We're going to oust the Speaker. What kind of leadership is that? Now, I don't know that Kevin McCarthy was ever going to be the best speaker or the strongest speaker. He certainly wasn't Nancy Pelosi, but he had similar challenges, but just not the same. Is it going to be better? Tell me how this ends where America is better off. And I'm not telling you it was on a great path with McCarthy as speaker. I'm saying we've now made a historic change. Nobody's ever vacated the speaker seat this way before in history. So now what? Who fixes this? Should all of these 8 people, Ken included, do you believe they should be primaried? Or are you born again Ken fan because he took on McCarthy? I'd love to hear from you. 303-696-1971. The text just keep pouring in. It says, yeah, you're right, George Bummer. This was can you think of any Republican who, I can't think of any Republican that could. I hate all this, another text. I hate all this name calling in the Republican Party, and I think Donald Trump brought out the worst of it. I think for all the good that he did as president, and there's undeniable good that he did, he brought along with him a change in rhetoric, a change in the dignity of the office, a change in the perception of what power that we give to people is for, what it's really for. He changed all those things, maybe forever. I hope not. I hope it's just for his lifetime and that we can sort of readjust and figure out a way to get conservative things passed without having to take some of the positions that were taken and do some of the things that have been done. But I'm not sure of that. I think some of this is because we couldn't get a wider margin in 2022, and we couldn't get a wider margin in 2022 because we had big old abortion on the ballot. Didn't mean to have it there, but the Dobbs decision blew us up. How about in 2020? Well, the DJT was on the ballot. 2018, horrible midterms then too. DJT was unofficially on the ballot. The influence that the last, since 2015, 2016, since Donald Trump took office, for all the good that's been done, there have been some significant changes I wouldn't call positive, but we're going to see what the other side looks like. Would you have voted to oust Speaker McCarthy? If you make you congressman for a day, would you have voted to oust Speaker McCarthy? If so, why? If not, why not? And now who's next? How do we get out of this? 303-696-1971. Newt Gingrich says those folks are traitors. He described, in essence, Ken Buck as being a traitor. I don't believe that. I think that's reckless use of those words. I think it's inappropriate to throw that term around. But there it is. Do you agree? I mean, there was already talk of primary and Ken, but for all the other reasons. Do you know what I mean? What do we do now? What do we do now? You going to primary these folks? Or do you think less of Lamborn and Bobert because they didn't vote for it? Or do you think more of them? 303-696-1971 is our number. We're going to cut away for a break here right after I go. I'm going to go back-to-back health on this just because the little paper tells me to do it. The next step, by the way, in addressing some of the long-term chronic joint pain that you have, if it cannot be addressed through all the great stuff that UltraCure does, and that will address a ton of it. If you're just at that place where your doctor's telling you there's going to have to be surgical intervention or you're just going to have to learn to suck it up, don't do that. You've got other choices. And no, it's not the choices of all the pain meds. The choice you have is to get a hold of the local medical experts at QC Kinetix. Check out the website first, qckinetics.com, qckinetics.com, and then call them, 303-900-8986, 303-900-8986. They are the leaders in regenerative medicine. That is using your body to help cure your body. Their approach, they've been doing this coast to coast, border to border across the United States, and we're thrilled to have a contingent of them here to help you. All you have to do to get the benefit of them is to give them a call, 303-900-8986, 303-900-8986. Going to cut away for a break. When we come back, it's going to be you, me, the calls, the text, George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
96% of the Republicans voted for McCarthy. 4% voted against him. From my position as a longtime Republican activist, they're traitors. All 8 of them should, in fact, be primaried. They should all be driven out of public life. What they did was to go to the other team to cause total chaos.
That's Newt Gingrich. He's the former Speaker of the House from back during the Clinton years in the 90s, Contract with America. Guy's been influential since, a big-time historian, has published lots of books. You can hear anger in his voice. Do you agree with him? I mean, he's talking about not just primarying these congressmen. He said they should be run out of public life. Run out of public life. Use the word traitor. Is that how you interpret what took place with Kevin McCarthy yesterday? Historic move to vacate Kevin from that speaker's seat. Let's go right to the full phone lines. I'll let you know as the lines come open. Jay, you're on 710 KNUS. Jay, what do you think?
Oh, I think this is a great show. So Newt Gingrich, my hero, Contract with America, smartest guy to run a Congress that I've ever seen. Had a chance to see it in person. These people have done the equivalent of Denver Broncos are playing. It's third quarter. We're doing okay. We have the reins. We actually have a lead. And then they jump over to the opposition's team and join their team. That's really what's happened here. It's quite incredible.
Couple questions. What do you do then in response to that? I mean, Newt Gingrich has used some strong language. He's calling people to be primaried. Do you feel that strongly about it? Or is this just, Jay, nope, I think it was stupid. I think it was a mistake and we got to regroup, but I'm not interested in getting rid of these people?
Well, if you watch the posture and the way Gates addresses the camera yesterday, I think he was very surprised. Secondly, he now is number one to be hit because he also lost Taylor Greene, Bobert, the folks that actually, remember, these guys would not vote in McCartney until McCartney conceded to some of their wishes 9 months ago. McCartney's only 9 months into this. And now they're saying, oh, okay, well, we removed you. But back then they said, you give us concessions or we won't vote for you. Remember that one guy ran across the Congress floor and went to go punch the other dude?
Right.
You know, that's where we're at. And when you're in the third quarter, you're ahead. We have the reins of the House. You don't fire the quarterback.
Is it something where you want to take that next step? And by the way, I don't know if Lauren Bobert, and I'm still trying to get her on. We're still doing text back and forth. Her schedule's just crazy today. I don't know if she voted to maintain McCarthy in office because she's a big McCarthy fan. That would surprise me. But she must have some other alternate plan in mind that was available. Same thing with MTG and Jim Jordan and the rest of these folks. To some extent, they owe fealty to McCarthy, but there's got to be some other thought in their head, like, here's how we can still get into the end zone. So I'm anxious to hear what Lauren has to say about it.
We're about to expose to most of America, you and I and the folks on this radio station know, that $250 million went to our president from China. Let's look at the long term on this game. We're looking at real serious stuff. So Hunter Biden's cruising around in a $146,000 Porsche, high on drugs. Nothing happens. They get him on a gun class. We've got a whole bunch of things to clean up here, and I'm really afraid of that. I hate to say that I'm talking about our president that way.
Jay, you made a great point in this way, too. You've highlighted something I hadn't thought of until now, and that is, you know, there are a lot of folks out there who see kind of the behind the scenes workings of the media in an attempt to distract away from, like, it seems like every time news breaks about Hunter Biden, then the president does something to totally distract from it, or the media focuses on something else. And we're told, hey, don't take your eye off the ball. This is the ultimate take your eye off the ball, right? Like, we have an inquiry going right now, an impeachment inquiry. There are revelations coming out daily, not all of them super big ones, but good ones, about Hunter Biden. He just went into court and pleaded not guilty to these charges. And what dominates the headlines? Republicans taking down their leader. I mean, it's perfect.
Yeah. Well, George, you're a Republic servant and a good one.
Well, thanks for saying that, Jay.
If I found out that you were taking money from the biggest gangster in Arapahoe County, whatever, the drug dealer, whoever that is, I'd come after you personally. Yeah, seriously, whoever it is. Now we
Listen,
have the President of the
it
United
should
States.
be that way. If you found
Yeah,
out that I was corrupt to the point of
right,
taking money for deals or whatever, I should go to prison.
right. That's right. And currently we have the long game. Remember, we're just in the third quarter. This McCarthy was only 9 months into the game. I feel like he had the temperament to deal with both sides. He obviously is patient enough, or at least it appears to be. And these folks go after him. If you look at I'm looking at the list of these people. Most of them are really not very popular. Gates and of course Andy Biggs, but the rest of them are very different. I was very surprised that Nancy Mace votes for this. She seems pretty smart. But
Well, and
what
Ken,
I'm upset about is
I'm a big Ken Buck fan, so I'm
yes,
just anxious to hear Ken talk through what happened here, not as a way of criticism, but I'm just fascinated to know this is why I ended up doing this. And that's the same reason I want to talk to Congresswoman Bobert too. I just want to hear, tell me what the long game is. Tell me what the goal is here. Jay, as always, great phone call, man. Thank you. 303-696-1971. If you call in right now, you can get Jay's line. A couple texts. George Jacqueline here from Nebraska. You mentioned Donald Trump raised government spending the highest it's ever been. Didn't it go to strengthen our military? Some of it did go to strengthen the military, but that's not the bulk of it. Some of it did go to the COVID stuff, no doubt about it. But 40% increases. How do you wrap your mind around that? Here's another one. Ours use traitor like libs use racist. I'm not sure I would have voted to oust McCarthy, but I'm very upset about how our government handles our budget and spends our money with zero respect for its citizens. Me too. And by the way, that's not partisan. If you go to Congress, you tend to suck at the budget stuff. But let me tell you who doesn't, by the way. Ken Buck. Dude is a fiscal hawk, has always been a fiscal hawk. So I don't blame Ken for that. But the rest of those folks that are going out there, what's the deal? They're spending money like it's going out of style. Politicians don't care about us citizens. They care about themselves. Let's go back to the phone lines. Ron, you're on 710 KNUS. Ron, what do you think?
Well, George, I think it's just amazing that this circus is just blown out of control. It reminds me of junior high. The Matt Gates thing reminds me, you get some dog scoop out of the yard and light it on fire at the neighbor's house that you didn't like and watch him step on it and then run through the house, ringing the back door. How could Matt Gates come up with such a stupid idea without a backup plan, without being able to say, I'm calling Kevin on the carpet. This is what I'm going to do to correct the problem. Earlier, you asked if I'd be congressman for the day. I would go in and I'd say, look, everybody that receives any government money gets 10% cut all the way across the board. Now, people are going to yell and scream, not my benefits, not this or that. Cut everybody 10%. And if you're a nonprofit or if you're a government agency that helps people, the top 10% of your budget cuts should be at the top, the administration. I find it asinine that we pay congressmen to balance the damn budget and they don't do anything. And they're the only government employees getting paid to screw around at the last minute. A balanced budget by September 25, or you don't get paid the next year. Plain and simple. I bet everybody would balance the budget. So I just, there's so much finger pointing and no accountability. We got to start calling people on that. At least Kevin.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that thing. What's next? If you had to look into your political crystal ball, man, what's it telling you?
It's sure curious that the Democrats are sitting back and watching us. It's like no comment, nothing. And like your previous caller said, boy, we have got so much stuff to clean up. I know we can't withdraw from Ukraine and all of that good stuff, but man, we got to get our stuff in order before we can go help anybody else. I mean, there's such a wide picture.
Do you think that was part of this thing? Now, remember, this last CR didn't include any extra funding for Ukraine. For you, is the Ukraine issue something that would cause you to question keeping Kevin McCarthy in there? Because he seemed like he was a pro-Ukraine funding guy.
Well, I think it's an excuse. And to me, it's not necessarily Ukraine specifically. It's just we're so happy to give money away to everybody and to everything without accountability. And man, it's time we got to start calling these guys, to hear that our president is so blatantly compromised, in my opinion. He's not the only one. Let's start cleaning house. Let's start at the top and work our way down.
How do we do that? What does that mean? How do we do it?
Well, you got to have more McCarthy standing up and saying, you know what, let's come together. Let's clean this mess up. It wasn't a Republican or a Democrat that created the mess.
Hey, Ron.
Hey,
Ron, forgive me, man. I have got to cut away to a break. Congresswoman Bobert is on the phone, and I'd love to take her with the short time that she has. Billy, can we do that right now, you think, or do we? Hey, Congresswoman Bobert, thanks for coming on there. I know you're busy running around. Thanks for taking time to talk.
Sure, I'm here.
Hey, thank you for doing that. Hey, I was hoping to get your thoughts on yesterday in terms of, within the Colorado delegation, Congressman Buck voted to remove. You and Congressman Lamborn didn't. And I'm just hopeful to get each individual's their thought process on this is where I wanted to go. This is what I think happens next.
Yes. So it's interesting. Ken Buck and I have been had taken hardened stands in very different areas of this Congress. So he and I have flip-flopped on who's going to hold the line on what topic. But yesterday for me, it was all about timing. I have certainly been advocating for a removal of the speaker behind closed doors within the conference, within our group, saying that we need new leadership, that I'm tired of the lies, the secret deals, only having political theater rather than the votes that actually matter, taking a hard stand and doing something to secure our southern border, reduce inflation, all of these things. The debt ceiling, that really was the time where my colleagues and I started talking and said, we need new leadership. We have seen all the messaging bills. The very first bill that we passed here in Congress was to defund the 87,000 IRS agents. Right before that debt ceiling vote, we had Limit, Save, Grow to increase the debt ceiling modestly. We didn't want to do that even, but we agreed to increase it modestly. And in that, we defunded $86 billion for those 87,000 IRS agents. Kevin McCarthy told us to hold the line, that we were going to get this through. And then he went in the negotiating room with Joe Biden and two other members of Congress and gave away everything, even extended the debt ceiling an additional year beyond the presidential election. So Joe Biden never has to defend this debt ceiling again. And he didn't defund the 87,000 IRS agents. And that's just a couple of the many problems in that one particular bill. So we've been communicating, when is the right time? What do we do? Now we're up on these appropriations bills. We've been demanding no continuing resolutions. And for me, I wanted to see if we were going to be able to use this terrible 45-day CR that I voted against to actually get 12 individual appropriations bills. And at the end of that 45 days, if we were to fail again, then it would be time to remove him as speaker. I had other colleagues who said, no, we aren't waiting 45 days. Now is the time. They voted. He is removed. The office of Speaker of the House of Representatives of the United States is now vacant, and we are looking for a new speaker. But I think the vote was right. I think the move was right. For me, it was all about the timing of it.
I don't know that you have a list of names in your head of who might be appropriate, but describe for us the characteristics you're looking for in that next speaker.
Yes, so it is all about the characteristics of honesty, trust, integrity, someone who will actually treat that office with dignity and respect, rather than just a place that they've desired to be their entire life and a position they've desired to hold. That's our problem. That was our problem with Kevin McCarthy, because that is the only thing he wanted was his speakership. I have seen him animated 2 times, animated to a point of yelling and screaming and slamming fists and cursing. And both times were only about his speakership, not about the invasion at the southern border, not about the reckless spending, not about inflation, not about children being trafficked at the southern border, not about 300 Americans dying of fentanyl every single day, not about the rising crime in cities throughout the nation, about his speakership. And so we need someone who actually values the position more than the title, and honors the office. So our baseline, myself, my Freedom Caucus members, and my allies outside of the Freedom Caucus, our number one priority is to make sure those the rule package, the commitments that we fought for in January remain in place. And now through experience, we know that there's going to be some tightening of that commitment to ensure that that is going to be fulfilled. And so we need someone who is going to honor that and recognize that. But also, George, if I may, just one more thing. I know I've kind of filibustered on answering this question.
No.
With the timing of this, the reason I was concerned with the timing is when we had Kevin McCarthy as speaker, conservatives are the ones who had the leverage because he was already the moderate guy. They didn't care what he did. They wanted him as speaker. Now they have leverage in the game. These 5 to 10 Republicans that vote more with Democrats than they do with our own party on policy issues. Now they are saying, well, we have some demands of the new speaker. And so that's why the timing just did not sit right with me, because I knew we would be giving up our leverage and it would be opening up a door for moderate Republicans to have more leverage.
Best guess, and I only have a few seconds left, Congresswoman Bobert, best guess on when this gets resolved. And by this, I mean a new speaker is installed and they can start focusing on that CR or whatever we're going to do in mid-November.
That's what we're working on right now. The Speaker Pro Tem, Patrick McHenry, he wanted to adjourn yesterday. We have been trying to avoid adjourning. We want to have meetings, but there are some members who have already left town, so we don't have the votes for an actual speaker's race. We could vote as early as next Wednesday for a speaker, but look, this is delaying our appropriations process by a week. And this is, again, timing, not something that I wanted, but hopefully we could get someone in there. I'm not advocating for any one person, but someone of the likes of Jim Jordan wouldn't be so terrible.
When you get to that decision that you're going to throw your hat in the ring, either yourself, I'm just nudging you, or you're going to throw your support behind someone, pretty please come back on and we'll ask you about that. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy morning after that historic day. Congresswoman Lauren Bobert, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, thanks, George.
Hey, listen, we got to cut away for a break. Billy's probably screaming profanity at me for blowing into the 10:52. Whatever we can do, we'll do in this hour. We'll come back. We'll keep the conversation going. Still working on Congressman Buck, but we're going to get Richard and everybody else on the phone too. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. We're out of time largely because we were blessed, I think, by having Congresswoman Lauren Bobert, one of the three who voted yesterday on that historic vote. We're going to keep talking about this thing. We dropped a couple off the line when Lauren was on. Call back in 303-696-1971. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Chaos is somebody who we cannot trust with their word. There's nothing selfish about wanting a Speaker of the House who tells the truth.
Unfortunately, 4% of our conference can join all the Democrats and dictate who can be the Republican Speaker in this House. I don't think that rule is good for the institution, but apparently I'm the only one. I believe I can continue to fight, maybe in a different manner. I will not run for Speaker again. I'll have the conference pick somebody else.
96% of the Republicans voted for McCarthy. 4% voted against him. From my position as a longtime Republican activist, they're traitors. All 8 of them should, in fact, be primaried. They should all be driven out of public life. What they did was to go to the other team to cause total chaos.
George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. That was Newt Gingrich. Before him, Kevin McCarthy, now the former Speaker of the House. The thing that's been driving the conversation so far today, and we've had full phone lines up until our last call at the last hour, which was Congresswoman Lauren Bobert talk to us about her vote. I think you can hear in her answers a couple things. One, she was completely dissatisfied with Kevin McCarthy as the Speaker of the House as well. But having had the continuing resolution in place, and she said she even voted against it, she wanted to see if there was a way to get to that place where there were the individual authorizations, the individual spending bills that they could then vote on. And then if he failed to do that, she was prepared to vote him out. I don't know how many of the 210 people that voted to keep McCarthy in office did that, but we know that 8 didn't. Congressman Ken Buck is one of the 8. He's my congressman. We're doing what we can to try to get him on the phone. He's been busy. He was apparently just on Fox News and all that other stuff. But nonetheless, interested in hearing his take, why he did it now. Because I'm not sure that both he and Congresswoman Bobert can be right on this, if it's just a matter of timing. The bigger issue to me is what now? One, I want to make you congressman for the day. If you were there yesterday, how would you have voted and why? 303-696-1971. Got to hear the answer as to why that is. Why would you do that? And what are the benefits? What comes next? But the other part is this, Newt Gingrich uses the term traitor, in my opinion, inadvisedly and frankly, inadvisedly, and in the way that I decry when others in our party use traitor to describe folks who just simply disagree with them. Traitor is too strong of a word. Treason, too strong of a word. Those words have meaning. This doesn't fit that meaning. I don't think Ken Buck or anybody that voted to oust Kevin McCarthy is a traitor, unless what he means is like traitor to the leadership or something, but then who cares? But traitor to America? I don't think so. Not even traitor to the Republican Party. I don't think so. I just think this was ill-advised, but it happened. And the other thing that Newt says, and I know Newt and Ken Buck know each other. In fact, I'm fairly certain I met Newt Gingrich with Congressman Buck at one point in the last, I don't know however many years. And they were very good to each other. But for Newt Gingrich to come out and say these 8 need to be primaried and run out of public life, what do you think about that? 303-696-1971. The texts keep coming in here. Here's some of the ones that have come in. McCarthy tried to be all things to all people. It never works. And to try is the ultimate hubris. That was McCarthy's downfall. Another text. 3%. Oh, here. You keep mentioning 8. How many were involved in the Revolutionary War? Brauchler proving he is unable and unwilling to stand up on his own. What? I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. You liken what's taken place here with Speaker McCarthy and Matt Gaetz to the revolution? This is the same thing as taking up arms against our overseas oppressors?
Yeah. Now, George,
And
if they want to talk about
yeah.
that being the idea of these brave Republicans that stood up and removed McCarthy, being much like the freedom fighters and our revolutionary forefathers, can we remind the texter that those brave Republicans had to vote with the redcoats, the guys you disagree with? They had to join the Democrats in order to remove McCarthy. So is really what you are saying, texter, that the most patriotic, most like our revolutionary fighters in this conversation is not the 96% of the GOP that voted to keep McCarthy, but the 4% that decided to vote with the Dems. So you're telling me you think the Dems are right. That's the conclusion based on that vote. That's who you think the revolutionary leaders are? Maybe we need to rethink the analogy a little bit more before we start texting
I
in.
think we've also, and maybe this is the corollary, man, to the use of the term traitor. And if you agree with that, then call in and let me know. 303-696-1971. I'd love to have that conversation. But maybe the corollary to that is we heap too much praise too easily and define as heroic and patriotic things that are neither of those things as well. I mean, maybe that's it, man. We use the term traitor when it doesn't apply, and we use the term patriot when it doesn't apply. We have just simply used those two terms to be substitutes for I disagree with you. You're a traitor. I agree with you. You're a patriot. The thing you did was cowardly and offensive to me. You're a traitor. The thing you did advances my sense of the universe. You're a patriot. I mean, these kinds of texts, and I appreciate hearing from, but these are garbage. These don't advance the ball. Brauchler has shown an unwillingness and an inability, unable and unwilling to stand up. Oh, no, I have the ability to stand up. I feel like I do every day. So it's not an inability thing. If it's an unwillingness, call in and tell me what I'm unwilling to stand up for. What did those 8 stand up for that Lauren Bobert and the other 209 didn't stand up for? What was that? 303-696-1971 is the phone number. And Billy, forgive me, man. I talked right through if you were telling me there was a caller on the line or not, but we've got a bunch of texts here. I believe Steve Scalise will be the next speaker. Maybe that could be it. Happy Hump Day. Yep. Thank you. That's a good one. The chaos is all around us. The Dems are trying to jail Trump. Why stay inside of norms? What? I don't. So the Dems are trying to jail Trump. Therefore, let's cripple our ability to lead in the House, or let's set back whatever we thought we were going to get done in the House. Now, listen, this could turn out to be a huge boon to Republicans. Who knows? Maybe Steve Scalise takes over, and all of a sudden we're starting to get things done like we haven't had in the last 9 months. That'd be great. I think you could look back on this and say that this was a great move. It's a win. But it feels like there's a lot of people out there who are like, they're trying to take down our political god. Let's set fire to everything. Let's just tear down everything because the norms haven't worked. And that means the absence of those norms will work. In the absence of any other plan, let's just reject this one. Folks, maybe you've forgotten the old conservative philosophy that there is a need not to change unless there is a need to change. And that's followed by identifying what the change is. We haven't identified what the change is. We've just simply said, I mean, this is like walking into your garage and saying, this place is a mess. Let's just burn it down. And then I don't know, hopefully we'll rebuild. Hopefully the things I want to keep are still here when the dust settles on the fire. Have a plan. Do you know when you go to recall someone here in Colorado, there's always another name put on the ballot for that recall. It's never just, hey, we pull someone out of office and then there's this gaping hole vacancy. It's not like that. You recall someone else is on the ballot to take that spot. We don't have that here. We have no idea. Now, what I do appreciate about what Congresswoman Bobert said at the end of the last hour was that the Patrick McHenry from North Carolina, the Speaker Pro Tem, was trying to adjourn for a week. I don't know what that accomplishes. I'd love to think that these people never adjourned. Do you know what I mean? Like, they're getting paid good money to not be in office, and I mean physically in office, more than half the year. In fact, that's another question that we should ask. How many days are you actually in Congress doing stuff in Congress? The idea that they would adjourn for another week when we have this clock running on the last CR, no, please don't take any break until you get a budget in place. I'd be down with that. But I like the fact that she said right now the caucus is working hard, and she dipped out of it to give us a call to try to keep that from happening so they can try to figure out a way forward. But it looks like they're not going to have another vote until a week from today. We're not going to have a speaker, a legit, straight up empowered speaker for another week. And then that puts us at a month before the CR runs out and we're faced with another potential government shutdown. If you're the Dems, what do you do here other than just continue to feed us gasoline? Oh, did you guys need some more gas? Here's a cup right there. Oh, did you need something else to light it on fire? Here's some fireworks right here. They're just going to watch us burn this thing to the ground because they know at the end of the day, media isn't going to blame us. And that means the bulk of the voters who get their information from media aren't going to blame the Dems either. They're going to blame us. They're going to blame you and me and the Republicans. They can't lead. If you're congressman yesterday, what do you do and why do you do it? 303-696-1971. Let's go to Neil from Wheat Ridge. Neil, you're on 710 KNUS. What do you think?
Well, first off, I got to say that I don't think either the ones that voted with the Dems and the Republicans that didn't, are traitors. I'm like you when it comes to the use of that word. I think there's more serious situations that occur because I don't think that Lauren Bobert and Ken Buck are on different paths. I think they're just towards the same thing. I mean, they are on different paths in this one scenario, but they're looking for an end result that's similar, and I consider them both very patriotic. So I hate the use that Gingrich used of traitor. I think that's very severe, especially one of the people that voted is from Arizona. His name's Eli Crane, and he's a strong conservative. He's a proud hero from the military, and I know he voted with those 8. And there's nothing unpatriotic or traitor about him. Their motivations were far different than what the Democrats were about.
What would you have done yesterday?
I probably would have voted to vote him out only because I think he has played trying to be on both sides of the fence. And I think if you're going to take a position of standing for something like in your party, you do what's best all around. But I think he has kind of slipshod back and forth. But is he a traitor? No. He's no more traitor than Ken Buck or Lauren Bobert. I think their motivations are somewhat different. I don't know that he's the right man for that position, but I don't think I would have voted any differently than those 8. And you know,
you think you would have joined the 8? I do. Do you think that Newt Gingrich is right to call for, independent of the traitor comment, that he's right to call for these 8 to be primaried? And I think his words were run out of public life.
No, because all along they have held a lot of the same positions that Gingrich has held. And one time, it's like looking at a graph, a bar on a graph. You got the Democrats going one direction, you got the Republicans on a different level, and somewhere along the line, you might have a line that comes off of the Republican line, but it's still heading in the same direction. It just took a slightly different step away from the direction. So I think they have the same result, but I think sometimes our side, or Republicans as a whole, they eat their own for no reason.
I think that's true as well. I think we're at the place, and I see this with some texters, where it's this just frenetic, let's do something. Like the texter who's like, why would we stick to norms? They're trying to jail our leader or whatever it is. And it's like, well, how is that an answer? I disagree with what they're doing with this part of the federal government through the justice system. Let's figure out a way to blow up Congress. Like, I don't understand that. That's not tactics. That's not strategy. That's just like lighting yourself on fire and running into a gas station. I mean, I don't get why we do it.
That's being a reactionary, and you're not going to accomplish anything except get burned.
That is absolutely right, my man. Hey, thank you so much for the phone call. Got a line open at 303-696-1971. Neil, thank you so much. You know who's not a reactionary and who doesn't light himself on fire, but does burn it up in the courtroom? Boo, how do you like these segues? You can't pay for segues like this. This just happens naturally. How about Dan Caplis and Bobert Wahid from dancaplisLaw.com? These are the two guys I've been telling you about and I heard a commercial that Dan did where he says some of the stuff I say it, but when he says it, it's because he was there doing it. So when he says 5 consecutive multi-million-dollar verdicts for their clients who are all victims of someone else's negligence or recklessness, just sit back and I think to myself, that just doesn't happen. That's not accidental. That's not 5 times the insurance companies caved. I want you to picture that. That is 5 times insurance companies looked at Dan and said, I will not do the reasonable thing here. You're going to have to pull it out of me. And Dan and Bobber said, okay, took them to court and rung their bell. That's like 5 consecutive knockouts as a defending heavyweight champion. I mean, short of the Rocky movies, you just don't get that. If you want the Rocky of the courtroom ring, that's Dan Caplis. You give him a call at 303-770-5551. Although, what does that make Bobber? Does Bobber become Mickey? Is he like, come be Mick? Does Dan turn to Bobber during the trial and say, I don't think that's true, but it would be fun to watch. 303-770-5551. Great guys for great clients who get great outcomes. That's dancaplisLaw.com. Let's do this. A bunch of texts, and then we've got Aaron and others on the line. Let's cut away for a break. Let me try to get caught up on the many texts coming through here. We'll go through theirs. Aaron and Neil's line is open at 303-696-1971. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
And I think it's sending a terrible signal to the electorate in advance of the 24 election that this Republican majority cannot govern itself. And we need to change that.
George Brauchler back with you here, 7 KNUS. That's Congressman Steve Womack bemoaning, I think, what took place yesterday. Real split there with callers and texters as well. Although I'll say if I had to eyeball the texts, I would say the majority of them, and it's not a huge majority, but the majority of them question the decision to do this. Here's some more that have come in recently. The 8 had to do this now. Lauren and many others were waiting to see what happened with the budget. It would be too late then. The debt ceiling is what did McCarthy in. Another one. If I'm one of the Dems, I'm going to exploit this to make the Republicans look foolish. I'm not sure you have to do anything to make us look foolish at this point. Lauren Bobert and Matt Gaetz and the entire Freedom Caucus are right. Swamp creature McCarthy had to go. He is a uniparty globalist traitor. There's that word. Like Ryan and Boehner. Traitor. My God, we just throw around the term like you're not a real American. You're a traitor because you don't see things the way I do. We need a speaker that is a warrior for the right, like Pelosi was for the left. Sadly, you and Billy are useful idiots, cheerleading America's demise. Texter, have the guts to call in. I mean, this bomb throwing from the confines of anonymity through the text, just have the guts to call in and have the conversation. 1, I dispute that Billy and I are useful. 2, I don't know what you mean by cheerleading America's demise. If you mean disagreeing with some of the crack smoke crazy things you say and others have pontificated on, expect that. That's talk radio, man. I'm not here to be a Kool-Aid drinker and we all sit around and agree with each other on how jacked up the country is because our guy didn't win the election. That's not this show. It's never been this show. It'll never be this show. Plenty of offerings if all you want to hear are from people who think just like you do and they're willing to sign up for every conspiracy under the sun. But you on this show, unlike any other show you might listen to, have the ability right now to dial 303-696-1971 and say to my ear these things right here, and we get to have a respectful conversation about it. Or you can just text from anonymity and go about your day wringing your hands together about how the world's going to hell. This is more of the texter. A traitor betrays the USA. Every vote to subjugate the USA via debt and bankruptcy is treason. All right, texter, if you had the guts to call, I'd ask you, is Donald Trump a traitor? Because the debt exploded under Donald Trump. Was that an act of treason? Or are you going to say, well, it was different. It was different because he was spending it on things I agreed with. Or, COVID. He couldn't be held accountable for the COVID thing. So is it an act of treason? Or is it a pragmatic act in response to some of the needs that the government has? By the way, I despise how much government has grown. It makes my stomach sick to look back on just the 80s. Go back and look at some of the conversations in the 80s about the debt that we were wringing our hands over. Like, you know what? We're going to hit $1 trillion one of these days. We got freaked out about $1 trillion. There's no inflation in the world that would account for the growth from 1 trillion to over, $30 trillion now? So texter, you can go ahead and throw the bombs, traitor, treason, and all this stuff, but just note that the stuff you're saying applies to your political god, Donald Trump, too. Okay. Explain to me how his acts that blew up the debt aren't also acts of treason or traitorism, if that's what you think. I don't think they are. I don't think he's a traitor for that at all. But it sounds like you do. 303-696-1971. Aaron, you're on 710. What do you think, Aaron?
Well, first of all, morning, George. And the thing
Hello,
is,
sir.
though, if you were a member of the House of Representatives, who would you pick to be Speaker? Or George, if they nominate, let's say George, you were in the House of Representatives, and they say, George, we need you to be Speaker of the House. Would you take the gig? Would you take the gig, George?
I don't think so. I don't.
And why would you not take the gig, George? Why would you not take the job? George, we need you.
No, you don't need me. You don't need me. But Aaron, let me say this. I think, unfortunately, the way Congress has existed historically is such that to be effective in that position, You have to know the inner and outer workings of every rule, every committee assignment, all that stuff. And you know that that's true from two recent examples. If you look at Mitch McConnell, that dude with a 1-vote majority or a tie has been able to influence the Senate in a way no one before him ever has. That's because he knows stuff, right? Nancy Pelosi. She had the wingnuts in her group too. She had the squad. Somehow she was able to keep them from blowing her up using whatever techniques, tactics, characteristic, cajoling, threats, rules, whatever. I don't know any of that stuff, man. Man, I'm not sure. Can anybody be effective in Congress anymore?
Well, I know one thing. The reason why Kevin McCarthy got thrown under the bus because this country, you brought it up, is over $30 trillion in debt. I mean, hell, I wish this country owed only $1 trillion. I'll take
Me too.
But over $30 trillion.
Oh,
see, and that's why Kevin got blown up because he didn't take a stand that we got to cut spending. We got to use, and of course, when it comes to the dumb donkeys, you're not going to find a reasonable Democrat in the House. Hey, get together with them. And how can we balance a budget? Because here at George, at the state level, at the state level, the government doesn't shut down at the state level, George. So what's going on at the state level versus what's going on at the federal level that these morons can't seem to get together and just balance a budget, George?
Aaron, super fair question. Would that the federal government work like the state government? Constitutionally, we have requirements that include things like the 120-day legislative session. We have a mandated balanced budget. We have certain dates that things have to be done. None of that stuff exists for the federal government. They are free to do whatever they want, almost however they want to do it.
And that just doesn't cut it, George.
Nope, it doesn't cut it.
You know that doesn't cut it. I mean, it's just just trying to get with some people. That's just reasonable. I don't care. I don't care about your social stance on abortion and gay marriage. I could care less. But when it comes to the financial stability, making sure this country is financially sane. Let's come together and do that. I don't care about the other BS. It's about making sure this country doesn't turn into another Greece, turn into another Cuba/Vietnam, a man-made asshole. I want this country to have at least a balanced budget. You got 365 days out of the year. Balance the budget.
We can't do it. And I say we can't do it because I don't think it'll ever happen. Unless we somehow figure out a way to amend the Constitution, and I'm not sure that America would support that. They're never, ever going to balance the budget. It just feels like we've moved past that. Like that's just something we say in a campaign. We don't actually ever do it.
Well, George, enough is enough. I want them to do it. I mean, at the state level, they do it. So we need that at the federal level. Balance a budget, leave what's in your means, stop spending money you don't have. This country's broke, George. You know it enough. We are broke, and they need to come together and figure that out.
Aaron, I agree. Hey, thank you, man, for the spirited call. Always a good conversation, Aaron. 303-696-1971 is Aaron's number. Listen, one thing I want to remind you about is don't lose sight of your own health. If we're going to fight these big battles this vigorously, this enthusiastically moving forward, we got to figure out a way to focus on wellness. And the greatest, newest way to do that for here at the 710 family is through UltraCur. It is a patented non-prescription natural capsule. And that Cur, that C-U-R, that's from curcumin. That's the kind of thing that works as like an antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, anti-aging, all the bad stuff to help you get back to a better kind of health. And the fact the two dudes that we had on earlier this week, who are the CEO of this thing and one of the inventors, man, these guys sold me. Listen, they got surveys that show that 50% of the people that use this product experience a benefit within 48 hours. And of that group, half of them experience it within 2 hours. Now, they recognize that the world is full of people making promises about take this, take that. These guys aren't going to try to trick you into anything. They're going to win you over with their product for free. All you have to do, go to the natural grocers and there's a ton of them in the metro area that keep popping up. Go to the natural grocers, go to the vitamin manager, and they have one, and say, hey, can I get my free 3-day trial of UltraCure? They'll give it to you. If you say, I'd like another one for my neighbor or my friend or someone else that I care about, they'll give you that one too. And so if you've tried everything and it isn't working, try this and then reach back out and let us know how it goes. You can find out more about them at getultranow.com. That's getultranow.com. Go to the natural grocer, go to the vitamin manager, ask for your free 3-day trial. Booyah. There you are. Let's go to the phone lines again. It's Tony. Tony, you're on 710 KNUS. Hello, Tony.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good, sir. How are you doing? What do you think about all this?
Good. Well, I think it's sad. I mean, that we've, even as a Democrat, I think this is a sad thing that we've actually turned out, our House Speaker, and I think it was predictable when it took 15 votes to get him in, and he had to make the concessions that he did. But it's kind of this long chain. I'm kind of surprised what you said about Gingrich. I hadn't heard his comment that he's after, he's saying the 8 should be primaried and so forth. I mean, this was the guy who started the whole scorched earth approach to the House. I mean, it was him.
Example.
And
what do you mean? What do you mean?
He actually had courses inside the House with the group of House members to explain to them, you need to not say the Democrats are our opponents. They are the enemy. They are a danger to the country.
That was back from the 90s?
Absolutely. He got his start going on C-SPAN, and he was the first one to recognize, oh my God, these cameras are on the podium, nowhere else. And he would go in there and he would give speeches that would be 45 minutes long, just terrorizing Democrats. And nobody realized in those early days, there's nobody else in the House. There's nobody in there. It's him just giving a speech. He then would go on to give these courses to other congressmen saying, this is the language we need to use in talking about the Democrats.
Tell me, in light of that, how do you view what took place yesterday? And maybe even, it sounds like what you're going to say is, I find the comments of Newt Gingrich to be hypocritical, given that recitation that you gave. Is that fair?
Yes, absolutely. And what we're seeing now, and you hit it already on the head, this is just kind of the splintering. This is the outcome of the splintering of the Republican Party. MAGA should be a third party. At this point, it should be a third party. You can't say that the value of the MAGA Party is the same as the values of what was the Republican Party right up to Donald Trump. What Republican would possibly be walking away from Ukraine right now in days prior to Trump? It was Trump's in there right now out there saying, burn it down, burn it down. If they don't give you everything they want, throw them out, burn this whole thing down if they don't give you every single thing you're demanding. He pushed these 8. And now and you even hit another point. Pelosi never allowed the squad or the extreme left of the party to take control. They had a voice.
Let me say this. I appreciate what you're saying, but I'm gonna take issue with this, that they're doing the bidding of Trump. I don't see Ken Buck that way. Like, I don't know the others. Okay, I can't comment on them. I know Ken. I worked with Ken. I've been a peer of Ken's when he doesn't strike me as a guy that President Trump says, I need you to jump, and he says, how high? That doesn't strike me like him. And if you look at what he had done up until this vote, he had put himself in a position where all the people that are cheering on the demise of Kevin McCarthy were also saying things like, oh, Ken Buck's got to go. CNN Ken. And Ken's just he's trying to soften himself and moderate himself. He's trying to be around. And now all of a sudden, Ken shows up and they don't know what to do with him, because they're like, wait, he voted to oust McCarthy. I mean,
quite honestly, Ken Buck, well, I don't understand his motivation either. And somebody had pointed out, it was you, one of the callers, somebody pointed out, wow, this has kind of come from a couple different sides. But the Getz group is clearly operating out of their loyalty to MAGA. Ken Buck, I cannot explain, and get him on to find out what his personal thinking was, because I can't explain why because he's been critical as of late of kind of where Trump and the MAGA party has gone. So I can't explain him. No, I guess here's a point of the call, though, and that's really to say I think this is going to be kind of a come to Jesus time for the Republican Party. And if we look at how predicting the next week is going to be crazy, but I believe it's going to kind of unfold this way. Who do they possibly get that those 8 are going to accept? Other than,
great question.
They're going to want somebody that's absolutely extreme. And I consider Jordan to be somebody they probably can wrap their arms around.
Well, and Lauren
but
said that.
I don't believe that
the
yes, I think he is, but I don't think about what would be 100 of them will want to come anywhere close to Jim Jordan as their House Speaker. I think he's way too extreme for the bulk of the people in that House. So they're going to have a very difficult time coming to somebody that they can agree on. And then are they going to actually allow the 8 again to say, okay, but here's the demands from us. You have to allow us 1 vote to throw you out, all that whole story again. You could have a really crazy scene where the Democratic Party will line up behind somebody that is at least not MAGA. And the Democrats help put this person over the top. You could see something even really crazy where Jeffries could actually emerge with an agreement. I'm saying it's kind of the extreme. It's the extreme edge of this strategy I'm talking about. And that's just simply to say, they've got to find somebody that I don't think they're going to accept MAGA. I think this is a chance for the party to cleanse themselves a little bit. You almost got to step back and say to yourself, how low or how much damage are we going to do to the Republican Party? And right now they've damaged it.
You have a shot at Speaker too. And Tony, thanks for the call, man. 303-696-1971. Appreciate the insights. If you think you have a shot at leadership, do you throw yourself on top of this fire? I mean, how long will you be allowed to serve before the people that put you there turn on you? Because, I mean, this has an Animal Farm aspect to it. You know what I mean? Like, we're getting to a place where there is a level of purity being demanded that means it doesn't matter what you've done for us in the past. You're not with us right now. You got to go. Let me tell you one other thing before we cut away for a break, and then we'll come back for the last calls and the last texts that are here. If you're looking to elevate your home space, could be the kitchen, could be the bathroom, could be the downstairs about to finish or upgrade the basement, got to look at your countertop. There's only one place in the Denver metro area to go for your countertop, and that is the Art of Granite. Our friend Mitch Floria, super American. I have no problems, by the way, telling you that a guy who comes over from communist-controlled Romania under Ceausescu as a young man earns his citizenship the old-fashioned way, gets a family, gets a business, takes it to the top level in what he does. And you can see some of this right now on the website. If you're on the Rumble or YouTube, you can see some of his work right here. It's phenomenal. That guy has a patriotic heart. That guy has the American spirit. If you're looking for someone that will do things like, wait for it, because there's 2 of them, extend you wholesale prices. He's not looking to gouge you because he's a craftsman and he has this high quality stuff that you can see at his showroom. It's not that. He's also willing to say, I think like you do. I listen to the same things you do. If you tell him you're a 710 listener, a George listener, he will give you the bathroom countertop for free with the kitchen countertop package. Oh, that's a pretty cool one right there on the Rumble. I love that design. That's interesting. And if you're just doing one of the rooms, he'll throw in the sink for free. All you have to do is give him a call at 303-386-5919, 303-386-5919. Once again, 303-386-5919, or you go check him out at theartofgranite.com. That's theartofgranite.com. When we come back, your text, your calls, 303-696-1971, George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Why should you buy your next vehicle at Castle Rock Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram? We make car shopping easy. We have a huge inventory of new and pre-owned vehicles. We can even custom order. We make it easy. Easy financing, friendly staff. And when it comes to quality service, our expert technicians keep your vehicle in top shape. Visit us today off of Highway 25 and Plum Creek, or shop online at castlerockcdjr.com. Castle Rock Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. Car shopping made easy.
George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Going right back to the phone lines. Terry, you're on 710 KNUS. Terry, what do you think?
Good morning, George. Great show. Really have enjoyed it, hearing both sides. And I really enjoyed Brian with you on the radio about 8:30 this morning.
Me too. I thought he did great.
He did. 3 points I'd like to make.
Yep.
Firstly, in the early 2000s, I had a conversation with John Boehner's office, and it was not John Boehner, it was his office. And we talked about the fact that as soon as Republicans took back the House and Senate and had a Republican president, he, as the Speaker of the House, would be happy to float a balanced budget amendment. Needless to say, George, it never happened.
Yeah,
that
would
was
be awesome.
It was a major con, and it was a major grift for the American people. If you go back and you look at the news reports, you'll find that he did make those statements, and he stood on that, and then he never brought it to the floor for even a vote. So that's number one.
Do you
Number
think that was an intended shell game? I mean, there's only two options here. One is he really thought he could get it done, got in there and realized he couldn't, or he never believed it for a moment and just said it to get put in power.
He never believed it, in my opinion, and he said it to get in power. Number two, if you divide 33 trillion by 330 million, the total populace of the United States, that is $100,000 for every man, woman, and child. And as we know, only about 60% of Americans pay taxes. And the majority of that 60%, there's really only about out of that, 80% of that 60 pays the vast majority of the tax. So there is no way that this is ever even repayable. They say right now, according to the news reports that I've read, only about 40% of Americans could come up with a payment of $500 or more if their car broke down. They couldn't put it on their credit card. They don't have $500 cash, and they don't have $500 in a checking account to pay for it. So essentially, this country is broke, and it's an admission. And what's amazing to me, this is an existential threat. It's an existential threat. That's probably the greatest one that we have as a country. And lastly, if you look at the percentage of the budget's 5.3 trillion dollars. They're going to increase it by 2.2 trillion. That's a 42% increase in debt. Again, that's another $6,000 for every man, woman, and child living in the United States. And if we don't get real about this, it's going to crush this country.
Do you
the
think
last point I make,
replacing
which is
Kevin is a step on that road? I mean, what do you, and we don't have a ton of time, but I wanted to ask, what do you think happens after this, good or bad?
I think that it brings it to the forefront of the public's eye. I think that it makes people at least start to take notice. And I think that it is a step in the process to at least try and send a message to the insulated Washington, D.C. bureaucrats that people have had enough.
I want to believe that we're going to put someone in place who will make a difference. I'd love to be able to come back here, man, and say, you know what? Turns out Gates and Buck and the rest of them were all right. This is so much better. I just worry that's not going to be what the outcome is, that we're going to get stuck in some other game of Russian roulette meets chicken, you know, and we're going to end up just holding each other hostage in this way. Terry, thanks for the numbers too, by the way. I think they're very insightful. It's enlightening. I hadn't remembered those numbers either. Hey, listen, that does it for the show. I want to thank Congresswoman Lauren Bobert for making time in her busy day to come talk with us. And you guys carried the show. You made Hump Day easy. Stick around. We'll do more of this tomorrow. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.